Good evening, Holliston. Welcome to the May 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Holliston School Committee. We welcome 3 new members to the committee this evening. If you guys want to take a quick second to introduce yourselves before we get started, there will be time for individual comment, but I thought we just can't get right to you. I'm sorry, I should have warned you. We can do later too.
Oh, good to know.
All right, so ahead. Frank, you want to start?
Sure. Franco Gora, happy to be part of the committee. Looking forward to it, partnering and serving our schools and our community.
Hillary Bresnahan, also very excited to be part of this team.
Joe Peru, very excited to be on the committee. I'm ready to roll up my proverbial sleeves and get to work.
Excellent. So we've got 3 excited new members.
Very
excited. We're going to pull them at the end to see if that's still holding.
They're shiny now.
So tonight we're going to go to the consent agenda, and then we're going to pull something out of order. So for the first, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, but pull the May 20th, 2024 minutes out, and we'll take those up at a separate time. For new members, since you weren't here, you're more than welcome to abstain from that. That's usually kind of what people do. So is there a motion?
Moved by Dawn. Seconded by Cynthia.
All's in favor? All's opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, so that passes for 0-3. So with that, I'd like to move and pull forward from new business the ratification of the 2024 to 2027 contract with the Holliston Federation of Teachers Educating Unit. So we have a contract. The teachers earlier today ratified the contract, and one second. And so we are now here to vote on that ratification. To vote on the school committee ratifying that contract. So this is really exciting. It's a culmination of 7 or 8 months. We've met with the teachers for 14 sessions over 28 hours of really productive communication. Shared a lot of ideas and back and forth. And the contract that we've come to is what I believe to be a very good contract. It's good for the teachers, it's good for our students, and it's good for the residents of Holliston. But before I get some more details of the contract, I do want to state up front that this contract is subject to the passage of an override later this year. I understand that is going to give some people in the community some pause, and hopefully as we go forward over the next few months, we'll get a chance to educate everybody about exactly what this contract does for the community, for the kids, and for the teachers. I hope everyone can keep an open mind, because as I said, I do think that this is a really good thing for the town. This agreement is about far more than compensation. It's about improving our students' educational experience. So to that end, starting in the 2025-2026 school year, assuming with the passage of the override, the student day will be lengthening by 15 minutes, except at Placentino, where it will be extended by 10 minutes. This equates to 45 hours of additional instructional time a year, and 30 for all schools except for Placentino, where it's 30 hours. Over the course of a student's K through 12 education, it'll be 540 minutes of increased educational time. Just to sort of level set that, sort of the state standard for time on learning every year is 990. So over a K through 12 education, this is more than a half a year of increased education for the students of Holliston. That is an incredibly meaningful amount, which I think that over time will bear significant fruits for the town. Additionally, we've negotiated some increased flexibility for planning time at the middle and high school, a committee to look at potential changes in schedules at either the middle or the high school, increased adult presence in the hallway between classes, and a few other sort of minor things that are important but less impactful to the day-to-day. So finally, we've negotiated a significant but fair compensation package that both compensates teachers for the additional instructional time and increases our competitiveness with surrounding districts. So looking at the terms, we in the first year we'll be eliminating the bottom entry step pay rate for teachers. That will help us increase our starting competitiveness with other districts. The contract itself is a 4-3-3 COLA over the 3 years, so 4%, 3%, 3%. It also adds a new step in year 2 of $1,500 above the current first step. Additionally, there's a 233 COLA on stipends. Given the town's strained financial position, as we've obviously talked about numerously, and we had discussion about a town meeting, this contract, as I mentioned, is contingent on the passage of an override. While we're still working on some final details, we expect the override to be roughly $1 to $1.2 million, or about $200-ish for the average household. We realize that's not insignificant, but compared to what a lot of other districts are doing right now, we also think that it's a reasonable amount. In the coming days, we're going to be speaking with the select board about holding a special town meeting in June, and then with a override vote in September.
September 3rd.
On September 3rd,
Which is the primary election.
So those are the basic outlines of the vote, and now we can open that up with the vote, the basic outlines of the contract. Did I forget anything? Okay. So does anyone in the committee have anything that they'd like to talk about, discuss, before we open it up to any public comment?
I guess before we advance towards public comment, I just wanted to share with everyone, I know Amanda Bigelow had served on the negotiation team with us, and she wrote a letter in support of this. She was with us in the negotiations since November. So this is again from Amanda Bigelow. I'm writing to support the ratification of the contract between Holliston Federation of Teachers and the Holliston School Committee. As a school committee member until yesterday's election, I served on the negotiating team for this contract, attending dozens of hours of meetings, going over the details of the contract and every possible financial scenario. Both sides made promises to get to this point, and this truly is a fair deal that will benefit the teachers, the town, and most importantly, the children of Holliston. As a former member of the Budget Subcommittee, I feel confident in saying that this contract represents the best financial option here. Although I will not be able to vote on this, I offer my full support to both the HFT and the HSC and to the signing of this contract. And so Amanda had offered her thoughts on that. And I also I received an additional letter from Minnie Gupta, who also served with us for the last 3 years. Congratulations to the 3 new committee members, and thank you for your unwavering commitment to serving our community. My name is Minnie Gupta, and I had the privilege of serving on the Holliston School Committee from May 2021 through May 2024. While my term ended this Tuesday, if I were still on the school committee today, I would vote yes to ratify a contract with our Holliston Teachers Union. New members, please vote yes in support of our students and teachers. A lot of work has gone into getting to where we are today. Since November 2023, we have had regular executive session updates from the negotiation team, Assistant Superintendent of Finance Keith Boudet, and Dr. Kuska. I would like to note that we are also fortunate to have Dan Alfred, who served on the Holliston Finance Committee for 9 years, and the immense experience of our Assistant Superintendent Keith Boudet, who has a deep understanding of our finances as part of this negotiating team. The teachers approached these negotiations with an open mind, working with us for many hours over 6 months to reach this contract. I'm incredibly grateful and confident about this contract and excited about the positive outcomes it will bring for our students. Hence, based on my understanding of our budget, the updates regarding negotiations over the last 6 months, and the positive outcome for our school district, I strongly support ratifying a contract with our teachers. This contract, if ratified, would increase instructional time for our students by 30 to 45 hours each year, enhance monitoring by teachers of our students at the middle and the high school, provide additional flexibility with planning time as requested by our administrators, reduce substitute teacher expenses. New members, you are in the position I was in just last week. If I were still on the committee, I would vote a resounding yes to support this contract. I request you earnestly to support the teachers and students of Holliston Public School and vote yes.
I swear I didn't help her write that.
She's down for work, by the way.
That's why we don't get it.
Thank you, Minnie and Amanda, for submitting those, and Don for reading them.
Thank you, Dawn, for all the incredible amount of work that you've done on this contract in particular.
And you too, Dan.
And
It really
And to
was.
Amanda.
It really was nice.
Keeper Day.
Yes,
And the
yes,
HFT
countless hours,
negotiating.
absolutely.
The flexibility
I know this has
everyone
been
showed.
a great deal of
Oh,
work
sorry.
for the entire administrative team as well as the negotiating team. I am particularly excited about the opportunity to have more time on learning for our students in the wake of the pandemic with chronic absenteeism being an issue in particular. I hope that this would help to kind of be a reset for students. You know, we have there's still hurdles to get through to get this through, but I hope that the HFT looks at this as an opportunity for a reset with them, that we support them, that we want to move forward with them, and, you know, and just see what happens, and just, you know, advocate the best we can to move forward with the contract so that they feel supported and that we are supporting our students and doing what's best for them. So.
Yeah, sorry. No, in the coming days, we're going to be communicating a lot more information just about the process and the timeline and what needs to happen, because it will be quick to some degree, and then we'll have the summer. But you know, again, I think that this is a really great thing. The timing of it is sort of what it is. I think there are going to be a lot of questions about that, and we can talk about it. But things don't always line up with the sort of the town's calendar necessarily. So.
So should there be an override, it would amount to about 50 cents per day per household,
Correct.
accepting any exemptions of seniors or...
Correct.
Okay.
And we also want to work with you know, the select board to see if there are any additional ways that we can help offset the impact on our seniors, because you know, these are a lot of people who have lived in town for years, paid into the school system, seen their kids go through schools. You know, the last thing we're trying to do is put anybody into a financial position that is untenable for them, or where they feel like they have to move out. And we're very cognizant of that, because a lot of, well, those are some of the heart and soul of this community, and so it's very important for us to support them as well, and we recognize that. At the same time, we also think that this, over the long term, will be a contract that will be beneficial to everyone, and not that it's all about money, even though it is for me. But it will be beneficial to people's property taxes, property values as well.
I think this contract makes a ton of sense. To sum it up, it improves our kids' educations, it improves the community, and it supports our teachers. There's nothing really glaring in here whatsoever after reviewing it the short time that we were able to review, and everything is a long-term positive, I believe, at least for the course of the 3 years of the contract.
I agree, and I'm excited with, similar to what Cynthia said, kind of the amount of time, while 15 minutes doesn't sound like a lot per day, the cumulative time, as Dan outlined, is really exciting in providing our kids with more access to standards or deeper access to standards throughout the year.
We have seen that among other school districts' contracts, such as Cambridge or Hopkinton, where they've recently increased their instructional time.
But not as much, right?
We are increasing our instructional time more than Hopkinton, but less than Cambridge. In terms of the minutes.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Is there any public comment? Miss Lisa Koshin? Please state your name, address.
No, I'm not supposed to move the microphone, so I can say something. I'm a student representative. Lisa Koshin, 158 Winthrop Street, former school committee member. I'm here to speak in heartfelt support of the proposed teacher's contract. Since COVID, we have endured an exceptionally difficult few years in the Holliston schools. Students, families, administrators, paraprofessionals, and all school staff have felt the impacts. First of anxiety and isolation, then of learning loss and uncertainty, and more recently of economic insecurity, with inflation making it ever more difficult to meet the rising needs of students. Teachers have been on the front lines through it all. We saw headlines about teachers nationwide leaving the profession post-COVID, and who could blame them? We've asked more of teachers in recent years than ever before in the history of education. I think public education is at an inflection point, which is a topic for another day, but for now, I think it's safe to say we need committed, hardworking teachers to meet the challenges ahead. No one gets into teaching to get rich, but we all know that making enough to live in or near Holliston is not easy, particularly with inflation. The reality is we compete with the towns around us. Millis, Ashland, Framingham, Milford, Hopkinton, Dover, Sherburne, for teachers. We must pay competitively to attract the next generation of capable, dedicated teachers, and we need to offer a fair wage to retain the teachers that have built this district. I know override is a scary word for many, and I've already heard discussions, including some tonight, about protecting seniors from some of the impact of tax increases. There are state programs, and I'm sure you guys are going to talk a lot more about this in coming weeks. But I also want to share some of what I've learned about overrides, not just as a school committee member for 9 years, but before that as a reporter for the Boston Globe, where for 13 years I regularly covered public schools all over the greater Boston area. Inflation makes the need for an override pretty much inevitable if we want to maintain reasonable funding. That's because the state, which supplies only a small portion of funding for our schools, requires that the tax levy, outside of new growth, only increase 2.5% annually, which is pretty frustrating when you factor in the many mandates that come from the state and that cost money. 2.5% is a completely arbitrary number, in my view, particularly when you consider inflation and the overall education climate we're in. It doesn't take into account the rising cost of utilities, or the increased social emotional needs of students, or the obligation to pay teachers appropriately. Districts around us regularly seek overrides for the exact same reasons. We are not an outlier. In fact, managing within a tight budget for the past 14 years makes the Holliston Public Schools the envy of other districts. I was on the budget subcommittee most of my 9 years on the school committee. This is a district that is exceedingly careful with money. I joined the school committee as a reporter, ready to ask a million annoying questions about where our money goes. After 9 years, I can honestly say there is no waste. Superintendent Dr. Susan Kuska and Mr. Keith Boudet, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, deserve enormous credit for solid fiscal management. While many school districts made financial commitments during COVID they couldn't maintain once federal funds dried up, Holliston was prudent with short-term additional federal funding so that we didn't have a fiscal cliff requiring massive layoffs right after COVID. A lot of districts did. In addition, because Mr. Boudet is a seasoned fiscal manager, the district has benefited from years of careful choices. For example, Keith has long managed the school choice program so that we don't increase class sizes, but do get needed revenue. Years ago, when I was just coming on the board, we negotiated a deal with Eversource, changing the type of light bulbs we use and installing motion sensors to reduce energy costs. We have benefited from efforts to bid and lock in favorable oil and natural gas prices. Over the last many years, we have created and improved special education programs to keep more children in district, which saves money, but even more importantly, keeps students in their own communities. There are plenty of other examples, but I'm going to stop there. Compared to teacher contracts around us, this proposed contract offers pay increases that are in line with the market. But unlike many new contracts, we are getting back improvements for students. This contract includes more instructional time for our children, almost an additional hour a week at Placentino, and over an hour weekly at Miller, Rams, and the high school. For anyone worried about academic rigor and performance or rankings, this is a valuable advance. The contract also includes flexibility needed for schedule changes that could dramatically improve the high school experience. To parents, I hope for parents this is an easy sell. The average annual tax bill doesn't cover the cost of educating even one student, and this small increase will not change that. Massachusetts has some of the best schools in the country, and Holliston ranks well compared to schools statewide. Your children are getting an excellent education. To homeowners, happy teachers make for strong schools, and strong schools drive property values. Ask any real estate agent. To Hillary, Frank, and Joe, welcome to the school committee. I know you're coming on board at a slightly tumultuous time. Please vote for this contract, and I'm hearing support, so I'm really happy. For context, our last override in 2010, almost exactly 14 years ago, passed very narrowly by a vote of 2,123 to 2,051, a margin of 72 votes. Your support matters. If you are on the fence, it will put community members on the fence. And our schools can't afford a failed override. Teacher morale has not been great in recent years, and a loss like this would be devastating. To the community, this override to fully fund the teacher's contract will amount to a modest increase over the course of the year. The daily cost for the average homeowner literally works out to pocket change. That's that roughly 50 cents you were talking about. To everyone, play out the alternative to a failed override. We just got out of a long contract dispute, seems like 5 minutes ago. If this contract fails, if the override fails, we're likely starting from scratch at the bargaining table. After months or years of fighting, you might save taxpayers a few bucks. And here I truly am talking about pennies per day. And at what cost? In that scenario, I see another blow to teacher morale that would cause real, lasting damage to our school district. None of us wants to see that. Please support our teachers, our schools, our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. You went a little over time,
Just a few.
but thank you very much. Yes.
Good evening. So I didn't prepare a statement, but I just wanted to add my affirmative to this contract. I don't have a vote, but I am very optimistic and positive about the contract that we were able to collaboratively, tentatively agree with the teachers, so that's exciting news. If you think that this is the end, getting to the end of my 4th year here, and I spent the first 2 years of my career entering the district under COVID and everything else, but also in mediation, and then this full year in collective bargaining, so 3 out of 4 years. So that certainly leads to challenges when you're trying to build morale and trust. And this would be in addition to the wonderful opportunity for our students to be able to gain more instructional time and for our teachers to have a fair contract and fair wages. It's just an opportunity for all of us to reset and rebuild the relationships together, and I'm really optimistic. This needs to happen for our students, for our teachers, for our community. It's a step in the right direction, so I just wanted to affirm how important this is, and I'm wholeheartedly behind this, and I believe, I know Mr. Boudet and Dr. Menard as well. I don't know if they had anything to add, but it's really a positive message, and I think if we can really reaffirm the relationships that are established between teachers union and school committee and administration that's been strained for the challenges that we've had in the last few years, this is really a positive move for all of us. And I know it's not going to happen right away, but I think if we all stand behind it and rally together, we will do the right thing for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just speak real quickly. I wanted to thank all the union members that were collaborating with us. It was a long process, but it was a very collaborative one that I think ended up in something very successful. So I want to thank for everyone for the time that they put into all the meetings.
Great, thank you. Anything else anyone wants to say?
Do we know how much they ratified it by?
A strong majority, but I don't have specific numbers.
So with that, we'll move to a vote. Travis, you want to come up, or? And we'll do this by roll call, just because it's a
Just
ratification.
explain to folks why Travis is coming.
Oh, so yeah, so as town administrator, Travis Ahern steps up. He /student representative.
You have to get him a sign, I guess.
It's representing students, right?
He has through our bylaws, has the 8th vote on any contract that we, or union contract that we ratify, so.
I would say a word on where I'm going to vote, if you want me to do that before you.
No, go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to mention a couple of things here. So I look forward to one of the select board members, Ben Sparrow's in the room as well. Obviously, we'll have a discussion on Tuesday night. I look forward to working with the school committee. As the chair mentioned, the need for override and ballot questions as we get into that. Obviously, you're all aware, but I'd strongly encourage you to, as yourselves, but also to work with myself and the select board on a robust communication program. Obviously, explaining the value that you explained tonight is very important for the community, and really explaining it to those who don't educate professionals professionally the value of that time on learning. So we're happy to work with you on that as we move forward, and where explaining what my vote will be, which is to abstain this evening. It's not because I don't support this contract. Certainly, the value of public education, especially as compared to private education, I think, as the numbers that were mentioned before, I think the value is explained within where we are at the moment, but simply where I am on the town side, and with contracts and what we're able to do on the town side, it wouldn't be appropriate necessarily for me to vote in favor, but that does not mean that I'm opposed. So thank you for allowing me to do that, and I appreciate the collaboration and look forward to working with you all as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Travis. So with that, we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Frank.
Yes.
Hillary.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Dawn.
Yes.
Dan. I'm a yes. Travis.
Abstain.
So we are ratified. And again, as I said, look for more communication coming from us. We plan on putting out a joint statement with the HFT, and there will be lots and lots and lots of communication. And also feel free to reach out to us, especially the 3 new members, with any questions that you may have. I believe their emails are live and are up on the website, so please reach out to them first.
Do they even have logins yet, though?
They do.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yes. Made sure of it.
Plus Dan on each one of those emails.
What's that?
Plus you in on each one of those
Yes,
emails.
usually.
Sure, yeah. So, anyway, that's great. Thank you very much, everyone. This is really good news. I'm excited for this. Obviously, there's a lot more work to be done, but this is the first real step in that direction toward a really good outcome. So.
Right, and a save the date for Tuesday, September 3rd, the primary election, where you could expect to see this, to come to vote on the ballot.
Right. And please tune in or show up on this Tuesday at the Select Board meeting, where we'll be discussing more details of this with the Select Board. So with that, where are we? We haven't really gotten very far. We do not have student representatives tonight. Actually, I would say that we've gotten very far, but just not in the agenda. So with that, we move to school committee individual comment. Hillary?
No.
Joe?
Nope.
Sarah?
Just a couple of things. It's the end of the year, so there's lots of good stuff going on. We've got the National Honor Society induction was on Tuesday, so lots of amazing students there. There's the Montessori Showcase last week, or just a couple of days ago. I'm losing track of time. Next week, there's the, I believe it's next week, the preschool and kindergarten carnival, which is fantastic for you guys when your kids get there. It's super cute. Senior Scholarship Night will be on the 29th, so just lots of good ways to celebrate some big achievements. So.
I'll just add to that Service Learning Community Celebration is on Tuesday, May 28th at 7 p.m. Usually it's here, yes? Yes, it is here, from 7 to 8. It's really interesting to see what kind of projects those students have been working on. One of my kids has been in that class previously, so I encourage folks to come out and see it. It's very exciting opportunities that those kids have. And then we're not going to be meeting until, and I just don't want to forget, so congratulations to the class of 2024, because we won't be meeting until after graduation, right? That's the plan. Not meeting again, so anyway.
Yes. Sorry.
Wish them luck.
And nothing additional beyond that.
Anything from you? Nope.
No.
Okay. And I'm good too. Yes. Sorry. Is there any more public comment? Seeing only our principals, and thank you all for this being postponed slightly. I think we'll move on to the district improvement plans, part of our presentation / school improvement plans, and I'll hand that over to Dr. Kuska and her team.
Sure, come on up, team. Come join us. do each year, we are presenting our district and school improvement plans for 23-24, end-of-year updates. We are not going to have a huge amount of change because we did present mid-year updates as well. The last 2 years, we've started doing a mid-year and an end-of-year because it's just so much to share, so many wonderful things happening here in Holliston Public Schools. So we'll be sharing what's happened since we met in January to have this discussion. I have our 4 principles here, but I'm going to start with our district portion of the goals. So I'm just going to ground us again. This is our second full year of our strategic plan. Building Bridges Together is our theme with our mission to collaboratively create a safe, inclusive environment that empowers all learners through innovative teaching and learning to be lifelong, active global citizens. And our very simple but I think strong message for our vision is embark on your journey, personal, local, global. And it is a journey that we take with our students and our educators and our administrators. And we have 4 archers and we focus all our work around. We'll be starting year 3 of the strategic plan. I can't believe it, already next year. It seems like we just wrote it with our support from our facilitators a couple of years ago. So, at the district level, under Arch 1, communication practices, I won't read all of that, but I will highlight some of the things that we've accomplished this year. We have shared with you earlier in the year that we have started to add our DIBELS reporting, our STAR and IRETA reports. We're sending reports out to families. We're using DIBELS, and we'll talk about this more when they get to the elementary level. But we're sharing this data out with parents. We have used this data before, but it was in-house that we were using the data and using it to inform instruction. But now we're sharing it with our parents so that they can too understand that. And when they have conferences and things with families, then teachers can also help understand this data with our parents and what it means for our students. We have been working on our website around communication, and one of the areas that we've migrated over recently is Extended Day. They had an external website, and as we've tried to increase and enhance our website, one of the biggest things for communication is to make sure that all of our families and community stakeholders have access to our website. When we had external websites or PDFs on the website, they cannot be translated. So when we have everything into our own website, and Mr. McLeod can speak to this as well if you have questions about it, it allows families to translate to any language that they need and allows equitable access to our communication online.
And just to add, so the big advantage is you can't search unless it's part of our main website. So if you go to search for Extended Day, you're not going to find it unless it's part of our platform. So the 2 big sites we've migrated are Extended Day and then the program of studies here at the high school. We still have more work to do for sure. So.
But we've made a lot of progress. It does take time. There's a lot of information coming in, but our goal, it really aligns with our initiatives, especially with equitable access for students and families. And also, I think actually, Mr. Alfred, you suggested that we try to come out with some more community outreach to our website. And twice a year, Mr. McLeod and his team reach out and see if stakeholders would like to be added to our community information. They don't get every single email that goes out, but any community thing that comes out from the district level, I click so that I add any community person, anything that really wants to be shared out, goes to the additional 187 community stakeholders that asked to be added, and then Mr. McLeod reaches out, and twice a year, anyone else can be added as well. Again, in an effort to make sure that we're having equitable access, our Zoom meetings are now having translated captions for people as well. We've been able to translate our family resources into Spanish, Portuguese, and English. We've made substantial progress with our Stage 1, and then we're also adding Stage 2 documents for our curriculum portion of the website, community events bulletin board. A big part of Mr. McLeod's initiatives the last couple of years has been moving forward with cybersecurity training and multi-factor authentication. I'm sure many of you know how many hacking situations we get in. I can't tell you, Mr. McLeod may know, how many times an email has come from me to our staff saying that I'm selling them a piano, or please click this link and we'll give you the world. Because our staff has had training, most times they're able to realize that that's spam and they delete it. If they don't, that could cost us significant problems if they get into, especially if you get something into the, the main part of the website, just our whole system. So much could happen, and it could cost us a lot of money and confidentiality breaches as well. So that's a huge initiative. And then we've also been working to pilot new content filtering classroom management solutions. Last week, Mr. Vernay was here, and he presented a very lengthy, informative discussion on safe and supportive schools, which falls under Arch 2, social and emotional well-being. He talked about a lot of this, so I'll just share some of the highlights, and then I know he's not here tonight, but a lot of your questions were probably answered last week. I'm sorry for those of you that were not here, but I think we have that up on the website, Mr. McLeod, that, you know, if we have that on the website? Last week's presentation. We will double check, but I'll make sure you can have access to that. So Metro West Survey is something that we've been really working on the last few years, taking the data that we get and really triangulating it and making sure that we're sharing information with staff. It helps us inform our social emotional needs of our students and trauma needs that we can help work with them in the schools. We have ruled out Ruler, and Mr. Vinay talked about this quite a bit, and I know the other principals will talk about this as well, but it's professional development K-8 that all of our teachers are working under, SEL. We initiated last fall the Sandy Hook Anonymous Reporting System. It took us about a year and a half. Sandy Hook is a nonprofit reporting system, and we had to wait a year and a half to get access to it because so many people are taking advantage of this system. But it's another anonymous system that people can go on our website and log into Sandy Hook, and we actually have prevented some what could have been serious incidents for well-being of students. They're able to report outside of school hours. If it's a serious thing that might seem to be an emergency for someone's well-being, it would go right to the police department, and then it would also go to one of our principals. So we haven't had a huge number, but we've had a few incidents where things were able to be proactively dealt with before school was in session, even though it happened outside of school. A big thing, which is going to really help us as we triangulate all our data, we're moving forward with the data dashboard. It's pretty well ready to go, but all of the information is getting up there. So not only will we be able to access all of our academic data, it'll be all of the, you know, I mentioned earlier, the STAR, Stibbles, iReady, we get MCAS data, but it will also have this Metro West data. It will have any social emotional kind of survey results and things like that, and to have that all in one place, we can look at demographics, we can look at whether certain special education and certain demographics are having more impacts. Attendance is going to be a big part of that, being able to run reports so that we can get information out to parents about trying to make sure their kids are being coming to school as much as possible and being on time. So that's going to be just having that really quick access to that. In the winter, we presented a whole night of data assessment and rankings, and we had spent hours and hours getting the information. We'll have this at our fingertips and be able to get that information out much more quickly. We've also been working with Care Solace. Prior to that, we had another program that we work with, but Care Solace is an amazing opportunity that anybody in the system can access. You can call Care Solace if you're having struggles and need some mental health supports and looking for a professional to work with, and they will get back to, whether it's a family member, a community member, they will get back to you and help you find that professional treatment because it's so hard to access in this day and age. We've been very successful having that in place. Cartwheel is another program that Mr. Vinay talked about last week, and it's a program that also will do face-to-face referrals through telehealth, and we had 19 referrals as of May 16th, and actually when I was at a training out in Chicago recently, I spoke with the women that are in charge of that program for our area, and they're going to be partnering with us further and making sure that if we have students that we can refer, this would come from our own clinicians at school. They would go to a family and say, I think I have a program for your child. And for families, especially if they cannot have a clinician or get to a clinician outside of school, to have that telehealth option is an additional opportunity to give support to students outside of school. I already mentioned the data dashboard. Mr. Vinay also highlighted that, and I actually attended their little graduation, but 16 of our educators went through 4 courses of training on trauma and learning. The courses were provided in-house through our district, through Leslie University, and I think they went the last 2 years of taking these 4 courses. That means we have more than this that took the courses, but not all of them, but to have 16 that stuck through for all 4 courses, and they presented their presentations just recently, and they graduated, and now we have that wealth of information throughout the district, and they can actually help support our students and bring some of this work forward and help enforce the learn the model, or having that opportunity for them to support other teachers with the training that we need. We are working on peer leadership opportunities, and Mr. Vinay will be sharing out with his team on June 6th the equity steering preliminary report. We had the equity audit done last year. We had the report shared with us in October or November, and he's been meeting with his team, a robust team, including Mr. Kime, and they'll have their preliminary results to you for June 6th. Teaching and learning. Again, this is another presentation that we'll be having on June 6th. Dr. Menard and her curriculum team will be here to present to you some of the work that we've done this year. A ton of work has happened. We were well behind on our curriculum review process. For those of you who have heard us talk about this before, it had been since 2011 or 12 that we had purchased any new math resources. So we're excited that we've had our pre-K-12 math and our secondary ELA curriculum review this year. And we are ready to move forward. We had our capital budget approved, so we would be purchasing new math materials district-wide, which is so exciting for our teachers and for our students. So that's going to take a ton of our PD time next year to help support the teachers with that training as well. We're also midway through science, and we're beginning primary ELA. Social studies is on pause because they are putting forward a DESE, a new civic requirement to the standards, so we're going to pause that for now instead of making the teachers relearn that when that comes out. We're really working hard. It's a huge part of our Arch 3 is addressing our vertical alignment in the district and also aligning with our state standards and making sure that we're looking at bias and equity in all the work that we're doing. I think it was 2 meetings ago where Jess Beatty presented, our student services director, on all the criteria that we're working on for entrance and exit criteria for basis, network, and pathways. The SSAs and SSD have done a ton of work with the counselors and our special ed staff to make sure that we're really making sure that students have the appropriate access and the least restrictive environment for all of these programs. So they've done a ton of work in that, and she presented a lot of information on that. It's been wonderful to see the progress they've made in the last 2 years. We're also working on our language-based program in grades 4 and 5. RIAMS is also working on theirs in grade 6. It's fully launched. District-wide, we've had a ton of training. I think this is year 3 now for Orton Gillingham, and so we will have 30 educators trained throughout the district on Orton Gillingham. For those of you who don't understand Orton Gillingham, it is a multi-sensory approach to reading. So when students are struggling, we have programs like Wilson, Orton Gillingham and Wilson are connected, and to be able to have 30 of our in-house staff being able to help support their own students. So our special educators will be having small groups with their students. They're already doing it, but to have this many people trained in a short amount of time is just phenomenal, and continue to grow our literacy program district-wide. Continuing with our curriculum review processes, and also Mr. McLeod had an AI steering committee this year, and they proposed a new AUP, and are waiting for, they shared out with faculty the feedback, and we'll be moving forward with that in the fall as well, correct, Mr. McLeod?
Yes, with school committee approval. Yeah.
Yes. We will be getting approval.
Possibly next month.
I think we have it on for policy to have it approved, correct? And we're continuing our vision of a graduate work district-wide, and it will be tied into our data dashboard as well. Under Arch 4, we were really working hard on both attracting and retaining staff. That's been a real strong goal, and our retention rate did improve this year, which is good news. One of the things we really found, what our most turnover in recent years has been with our paraprofessionals. So I'm very excited that we were able to negotiate a really strong contract for our paras earlier this year. But in addition to that, prior to that, we came up with a new role, a building liaison role. We were seeing so much turnover in our paraprofessionals. Our salaries were not competitive enough. They are more competitive now, and we put a lot of work into the collective bargaining for that. But in addition, having people coming in and out through the year creates challenges for our students and for our staff. So we put in a building liaison role last fall, and that has one person in the building, so that if someone enters new throughout the year, the principals do meet with them, but to have someone, a go-to person that can answer questions and be a support for them has really been helpful. And they work very closely with our student services director, Jess Beatty, and she works to make sure we're providing appropriate training for them. We also have put it online, our recorded training, so that all new teachers have reference to some of the trainings they might have if they're onboarding later in the year, along with new para module training. Just recently, we were able to get our capital budget approved for new staff laptops. So Mr. Bidet and Mr. McLeod are in the process of ordering those so we can get those deployed to staff before the school year is out so that they have those to learn on some of the new tools with those over the summer. We have ongoing weekly reports for cybersecurity going to both our IT on this town and the schools. In April, we applied for a new statement of interest for hopefully a new high school at some point. We'll hear about that in late fall, and I'm hopeful that this could be our year, and we'll be talking about a new high school at some point. In addition, we're in the process of, with our capital funds, purchasing curriculum materials and PD and planning for next school year. I put together a whole new proposal of how our curriculum positions could be used more beneficially for all staff. We had hired 3 curriculum coordinators, pre-K to 12 plus, and they were shared in all 4 buildings. I'm very excited that while those roles were wonderful, it was challenging being in all 4 buildings. So we put together a plan this year that we are now going to have 2 roles in all 4 buildings. We will have a pre-K 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, both a STEM and humanities person in each building full-time. They will be half curriculum, half interventionist, so that dual role of helping to support staff with teaching and learning, but also be able to intervene with students that are struggling, particularly as we move towards Algebra 1 and grade 8. I think these will be really beneficial roles because they'll work directly with the staff and then also be able to support staff that need Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports for students. And then we also have had a lot of training as leaders in the district as well. Some of the work that I've been involved with, both Mr. Bidet and myself, completed state training on the READY team at the state level. This was provided free through the Mass Superintendents on racial equity, diversity, and inclusion as a team. And then also I went with Mr. List on, we spent a couple of days over a weekend doing training with MIAA and Mr. Baker, and that training is also anti-bias training that we'll be bringing into the district. That's to really try to rule out some of the bias that we see, particularly in sports. We've seen a lot of this in social media and the news about some of the challenges we see when children are playing sports and their adrenaline is up, and sometimes the aggressiveness comes out, and sometimes inappropriate things come out of mouths. So how do we prevent that from happening and be proactive? So this is the work that we're doing as a team at the high school, and we'll bring that training to all of our coaches this fall. And congratulations goes to Dr. Menard and Mr. Bidet. They both completed Influence 100 last Friday. I went to their graduation, and I did tweet out about that. They have spent the last 2 years with this very rigorous training. It's also on equitable opportunities for students and anti-bias training and how to become even stronger leaders. So both of them completed that work after 2 years, and it was a wonderful celebration for them on last Friday.
How would you like to handle questions? Do you want to do it segment by segment?
I think maybe if you have quick questions here, and then when they speak at the end of each of theirs, you might want.
Sure.
That's probably the best way, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for this portion?
Well, I mean, you're going to talk about it again in terms of the data dashboard stuff, but I just feel like when we get into, you're not going to be able to do this for June, but in the fall, I would really love to see, like, how does that work in, really take, like, here's a student, and here's what we can see, so that we can really show the community what that means, because I feel like we say data dashboard, and I don't know that folks really understand what that means and how it will be impacting students and impacting teaching and learning, so.
Yes, and Mr. McLeod will be happy to put together some slides on that and show you. I mean, it's really going to be very interactive, and like for me, the biggest thing when you showed us how we can access just absenteeism and get reports out to families, that's huge, just so people don't always realize until they see it on paper sometimes, and then to have it tie in with all our social emotional learning, all of our academic, it's going to really be helpful. I think it's going to really move us in a positive direction, and then we'll be able to provide you another data assessment and rankings presentation and how that all connects as well once we have that data dashboard in place.
So is there a way that, without obviously getting into children specifically, that we could see and actually sort of ask to change the certain things we were sort of, the stuff that you showed last week sort of seemed like you could make some changes and it would be at a higher level, so it wouldn't be showing student-specific information.
We should have like a sort of a public-facing sort of dashboard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something that would be okay.
Are you asking to see a little bit more at the June 6th meeting, or are you just asking if...
In the fall, whenever.
In the fall, whenever,
yeah.
I mean, I don't, how long it takes for you to build it and do all, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need June 6th. It's-
No, that's,
I didn't know if you wanted more like just how it works more, but you're
No,
just
but
saying.
especially if
have
we're going to
that
be adding more
available.
stuff to it
Right.
over the summer, I think in the fall would be great.
yeah. But I'd like to be able to see, it would be nice to be able to say like a Holliston student, like your average Holliston student, and have that facing for.
Right, maybe there's some snapshots.
It's just
you can-
generic, yeah,
You can do
about-
that with a
yeah.
generic sort of thing, or blacking out names or whatever.
Sure, and it's going to be a work in progress, so we're going to bring you
Yeah.
sort of the first blush.
Sure,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Tell
I'm
us,
excited about that.
What you're looking,
Yeah.
the company is great to work with, so they're
Great.
more than willing to accommodate.
In year one, it's going to be available for our administrators to be able to access this data, and then we'll eventually want to get it handed off to teachers. We just don't want to add one more thing to replace, but
Right.
for them to be able to access that during PLCs, when they're planning a tier 2 and tier 3 intervention, it's really going to, really be effective in moving the district forward as well. Any other questions?
I had a question. Going back to Arch 1, what are the system constraints that limit it to the website to being only updated twice per year? And how many people typically sign up?
Well, I'll let Dan answer that, but the twice a year is just a capacity thing, because if they were offering it all the time, they'd have to check that, and we don't have so many people logging on that was where Dan felt he could manage with his team.
Sure, so we just open up the form in August and January. Those are the two opportunities. We give folks probably like a month to sign up. And then it was just a decision, do we want to do this monthly? Looking back on it, we could probably increase the frequency of it because it's not as much of a lift. It's basically the form is filled out on the spreadsheet on the website, and then you have to import it into our systems that are integrated with PowerSchool, and that's how the messages get sent out.
So it's possible we can move it to quarterly at this point. You're not getting the volume you were getting at first, because the first year was when we just.
How many people signed up in the January last open?
Great question. We have 187 total. I can get that.
There's just a couple handful though, right?
It was about 30, if I remember, 30 additional ones, but no one's unsubscribed. We also give people an unsubscribe option, and not a single user has removed himself from it.
They just love our newsletters.
open, so maybe not move to monthly, but every other month, but keep the form open, right? Because I think the issue was if you keep it only open twice a year, if you miss that, you've missed it. So allowing to sign up and then stating in there, hey, we're only going to look at this once a quarter maybe, but at least they put their information in. I think that was the piece, the feedback that we heard from the community.
Sure, that makes sense. We can certainly accommodate. So once every quarter, is that when?
I think that.
I think we just have to look at the numbers. We don't want to overburden,
Okay.
the team, but at the same time, I think it's more about access to apply versus when they get on.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll look into that further and see if that's reasonable to do. We will move in that direction.
Just a quick question about the MIAA training. Is that so that's something that coaches will get?
So it's through the Northeastern Center for Sports and Society, partnered with MIAA because of incidents that were occurring on sports fields and courts. So they offer training to districts to come in to work with Northeastern Center for Sports and Society to do anti-bias training to see what they could offer coaches. Matt Baker is working with the group. Matt Baker and I are working with the group to bring that in for coaches, and they'll start in the fall so that they'll be able to recognize and respond. Because a lot of times coaches are teachers a lot of times, but also sometimes they're not teachers. And so we found it important to go through the training ourselves with Dr. Kuska and Mr. Baker, and then it was a great training, and then bring that in for our start with our fall sports coaches.
How long is the training? Will it be
It's a
required?
2-day training.
2-day training.
The
Does
one
it,
that we attended was a 2-day. The one
Yeah,
that we'll be
one
doing
day.
in-house was 1 day.
1 day, sorry, yeah.
does it include a component about like social media and?
It goes through everything for the coaches, but it's to help recognize how to respond to players, how to talk to players, specifically when it comes to race, when it comes to some of the social emotional wellness pieces that happen with sports and anxiety and depression and healthy lifestyle, and all of that sort of encompasses all of that.
It's really
for the
more of a
coaches.
preventative program than anything. And, it doesn't specifically address the social media. It's more about what can we do before we even have an issue on the field.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the high school. I will just point out, you'll see that we have linked in this document as well, although you have it in your folder, linked to this presentation. We each have our more specific to each arch. You'll see a lot more information that you can look at as well. We just put some of the highlights in our presentation for tonight. So I will turn it over to Mr. List.
Thank you. Welcome to the new members. So you're going to see in this presentation NEASC a lot. NEASC is the organization that accredits both public and private high schools throughout the Northeast. We're in our will be our 10-year, it's every 10 years you go for accreditation. We just had our 8-year visit. They come in, they do you provide them with a comprehensive report about the school. They then bring folks in, meet with administration, meet with teachers, meet with students, meet with families, walk around the building, observe classes, and they provide us feedback and some guidance on areas of growth that we need to look for to meet the accreditation standards. So we just went through that visit, and we would have our decennial visit right around October, November of 25. So that's what you'll see there referenced. And if you go back in, I don't know, school committee probably in, was it December or January, I made gave a presentation on what were the recommendations for NEASC. So that's what that is when you see it throughout the presentation.
Just for you guys, you can go back into your folders and look back and see. You can pull that up later at your leisure.
I only say that it's helpful in understanding a lot of the work that will be going on moving forward. So my first year, I'm almost finishing up my first year here, and as I said the first time, in the middle of the year, and now communication was all I heard. So we spent a lot of time working on that in the high school, making sure that there was a weekly newsletter. We had a student intern help us with TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, doing some of that work, really to make sure that both parents and students knew what was happening in the high school and knew what was going on with their students. We updated our program of studies and scheduling website, including videos for families to make it more accessible for our students whose first language was not English, and so they have the opportunity to watch how to pick classes and get on and do some of that work. And so we really tried hard all year to make sure that families knew what was happening. And I think that we've been successful in that, and we'll continue to work through that moving forward. We learned through the NEASC process, again, that's where family feedback shared through their reports that was an area of growth for us. And so based on the NEASC standards, I think we're in a good place moving forward in our accreditation process there.
Can I just point out the picture of Nugget there? Nugget is our mascot, maybe, the second mascot of the high school. But I just want to point out, because I presented about trauma and learning, that our teachers, the 16 graduates, and 3 of the teachers presented their program for social emotional well-being at the high school. And Nugget is a big part of that with our adjustment counselors. So that's a great opportunity for students. We also have our adjustment counselor at Placentino also has some, I'm sure that's on your list, I won't steal your thunder there, but I just think these are some opportunities that we're so fortunate that our staff have invested. These are their own dogs, and they're bringing them to school. They're insured and safe, and our students really benefit from the well-being they provide.
And Nugget was a big part of that, and we had our, the folks who went through that training just surveyed our staff and students based on their training, and are going to be presenting the results to our staff and just about trauma-informed instruction there. It was year 2 of partnering with the Mental Health Academy to really focus in our work on trauma-informed instruction with our staff. We worked with Sarah Kuhn and Taryn Lang, two of our teachers, to restructure the advisory program. And we have student advisory leaders who were provided training in partnership with HDAC through Holliston Youth and Family. HDAC is the Holliston Drug and Alcohol Awareness Coalition. And so we partnered with them to bring in training for our students there that they could then bring on to their advisory. We worked on relationship mapping with our school to really understand. One of the highlights of Holliston High School is the relationship that teachers and students have, but we wanted to make sure that students weren't falling through the crack. And so we worked as a school to identify students who might not have relationships with trusted adults and to do outreach to those students. We worked with the Challenge Day program to do some of that work in engaging with students on a deeper level in that way, to build relationships with adults and to really help understand the experience of others in the school. And that was an amazing program. We partnered with HDAC to bring in the Think Fast program, which for our 9th through 12th graders, which raised awareness of, it's really, if you go back and think about, it's a fast interactive game show, but it is about drug and alcohol awareness and vapes, and which is a problem that we face for teens at the high school. We had Leslie Diamandis, school psychologist, reimagined and redeveloped our intervention program to help us identify students, either whether it be attendance issues or struggling for multiple reasons, and having a way for staff to identify those students and bring them forward. And that was very successful this year. And then we'll be working with Jerry Alvernay to administer student, staff, and climate surveys. And in this area, we did very well with NEASC because, as I said, one of the highlights of Holliston High School is the relationships that students have with the adults in the building. And so NEASC was very complimentary of the work that we have ongoing there.
David, do you recall what the percentage of students? It was like over 80% of them felt connected to an adult.
Yeah, when we did the work, it was
underselling.
it was about 85% students had a trusted adult in the building. When we looked at the teacher side, when we did the relationship mapping piece, I mean, it was early on in the year, so freshmen, if you take out the freshman piece, because they were brand new to the school, but that also number hit, I think it was 84 or 83% of students were teachers identified as having a relationship with that student beyond just knowing their name or some sort of the peripheral information about them. So it was pretty amazing to see that process there.
May I ask, on the arch you just had up in terms of advisory, so what were some of the changes that you implemented this year? Do you feel like it's been, I guess, what are the pros and cons? What do you anticipate? Maybe, do you have anything in mind to change for next year?
So I think it was most powerful for our youngest students, working with our 11th graders. I think we saw that was clear. I think there was more benefit there for 9th and 10th graders than maybe for our 11th graders. We really focused on, what they do is they just take different activities throughout. One of the areas that we have to work on is sort of the continuity of what's happening with those students. Again, we have to find, I think Dr. Kuska talked about it, the training for our student advisory leaders. I mean, they're getting up in front and teaching. And so we had one training session for them. And so we need to find ways to engage more there. Next year, we're going to sort of tighten it up with the amount of advisory. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, but we're going to be, instead of it being like advisory every Friday, our counselors had a lot of success this year with small group sessions for some of our kids. So they're working right now to develop for next year. Well, there will be small group scheduled sessions when it would have been advisory. So like right now, advisory is like every Friday, but so you might have advisory once a month, but the other times the counselors will be working with students, with their students in small groups on different topics, whether it be 11th graders in the college application process, 9th grade about study skills, welcome to high school, those pieces. 12th graders, again, that process, and they'll meet with them and do the college application process there. 10th grade, working on, I remember back in the day, like the profiles, like the profiles of like what you might be interested in studying, what you might want to do for a job later. All of those start to like understand what the students' needs are and how they feel about their future, so that they can then get data there to then support them moving forward. Because right now we don't have that piece. The counselors went through training, MyCap, which is a state's program that gives counselors an ability to really help students. It's open to the families too, but it's really a college and career counseling program that was created for students in Boston, and now it's offered statewide and available. And so our counselors went through training there to bring that support to students. So some of those pieces that college counselors offer for thousands of dollars, students will have access to as well. Sorry, one more thing on the SEL piece. Our school council just finalized, and I'll share it out with our students because they'll be so happy, some new phone rules. We did, some of our staff did some reading on the effects of the cell phone usage, and they're very much behind some cell phone rules, so that'll be rolling out next year for the students who are watching school committee and are excited to now hear that.
On their phone.
Right.
We'll be talking soon.
Teaching and learning, as Dr. Kuska said, looking at the curriculum reviews, our wellness department has new state frameworks they're working on, and so they're updating all their curricular resources to provide a more sort of modern health classroom for students. The math curriculum review, we've been going through trainings to bring in the Reveal math curriculum. As I talked about the school counselors, we finalized our rubrics. So when we talk about the vision of the graduates, how do we know that they have actually met what we believe a graduate should have when they leave high school? And so our departments worked on rubrics that'll be rolling out next year. They finalized those, and so a student will be able to, it's not only about a grade in the classroom, but what that unit they worked on or the project they did, how is that connected to the vision of the graduate, which eventually leads to portfolio presentations for students on how they have met those standards as well. We finished year 3 of STAR implementation, and that is moving on now to IXL. IXL is it's tier 1 support for students in the classroom they can work on. It's being used throughout our classrooms now for math and ELA to support our students. And we've finalized we signed, Joan, Dr. Menard with the PLTW? We good on? Yeah, so Project Lead the Way, which is falls into the high quality instructional material for some of our electives for students who are more interested in some STEM areas, so engineering. So it really brings together the curriculum for that so that students have a pathway of growth throughout high school. So if you're really interested in computer programming, biomedical, innovation and engineering, civil engineering and architecture, you can come in 9th grade, start taking those classes and build your way up as you go, eventually ending in an internship in those areas. And so really some of the amazing electives we have kind of connecting all of those so that students can really go after something that they enjoy in high school.
When did you hear about that grant?
So they changed the grant timeline on us because the state can do that. So we have it actually just sitting in a folder ready to go. Okay. I have a meeting, well, I'm not going to it because I have graduation rehearsal, but May 29th they release, but we'll be applying for a planning grant. Now they've moved it to September, so you have a half year to plan, and then you roll it out. Then you have to Part A and then Part B, but it used to be you planned for Part A planning now, but they've moved it to a 1-year planning cycle. So we'll be applying for that, but we have all the pieces in place by bringing in, because they we have to have high quality instructional materials. We have to have basically college level programs available to students to take throughout. So PLTW helps us achieve that for our students.
Awesome.
And just in addition, as you know, the last couple of years, we added the global citizen endorsement and the computer science endorsement. So I mean, this is what students have been asking for and teachers have been asking for. I hope we're able to move it forward because it will just enhance the offerings we have at the high school.
And then just the last piece of the teaching and learning is that part of the curriculum reviews that we've shifted over. Next year, we'll have our 12th grade English curriculum completely revamped along with the math. And our folks are working on ways to sort of build those tier 1 interventions into the classroom moving forward. And that'll be a lot of our work next year. So. And our core talent and resources. We've been working hard. We have a lot of young staff, and so having our department leaders work closely with them in coaching and support them throughout, using the evaluation system to provide feedback, but also just time in the classroom to do that. And we'll be working with our department leaders moving forward to help support those new teachers. We want to make sure they stay in district and feel supported, and so as of now, they all want to stay, so it's good. So yeah, it's been great, and so again, welcome to y'all, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, David.
No questions?
Questions?
Sorry.
So I'm hearing that social emotional learning was a big commitment for the high school last year, a lot of initiatives invested in that area. So I'm wondering if you can share with us what are some of the impacts that you're seeing, whether around engagement, student learning, community, attendance?
So I think the piece that we see is we were trying to find the kids. So as I said, relationships are huge here with our teachers. And so one of our goals was to find those kids who fall through the cracks of that. And so by connecting that with our intervention program and having a space for teachers to be able to identify students who they may not know or that have attendance issues was huge for us because we didn't have a mechanism before that for identifying those students. We actually we worked a lot with our attendance secretary and the AD to work with students who were missing school a lot and showing up to sports because that's not actually allowed. But that was able to help us actually identify some students in a critical area, in a space where they feel safe, right? They want to come to their sports, they want to be there, but they weren't actually showing up to school. And so we were able to identify students there, work with them through coaches and their school counselors to support a lot of work. I think moving forward, what we have to do is just educate more of our staff and our coaches, really, all those trusted to be able to identify more of the students. I'm blanking on what it's called. Jerry L's thing that he rolled out.
Handle with care.
Handle with care. Thank you. Jerry L rolled out the Handle with Care, where we have information about students that we just need something's going on, and so he's able to make us aware of that, whether it be through the community, through the police department, or whatever it is, and we get notifications of that to be able to support the students. So.
And I think the big point with that is keeping the confidentiality of the student, but just saying, just this child might need a little TLC right now. You don't need to know the details, but just tune into them and pay attention, and that's really what that's about, so that's important.
And I'm really curious to see the data when we put these cell phone rules in place to see what happens there and see the engagement piece to see if that goes up. So.
But not everybody will be on board with that, so
Tiny bit of
I'll do it this week. Yeah.
Just a question, the administration of the district student and staff climate and culture surveys, when did that occur?
So it's going out. So
Okay.
that's going. I got it. Jerry L was working on that with me. So
And will we see results on the website for kind of parents or
at some point, Dr. Costa had to give results when we get the Metro West is released too. So when that becomes released,
like in the fall or winter of next year?
When do we?
Isn't it in the fall when we get those results? And I think Jerry will
Yeah.
give them in the fall when he does his presentation.
We'll get, so principals will get preliminary results over the summer, and then you get like the data analysis that Metro West Analysts and Survey folks do in the fall.
And then will that be added to the dashboard as well, Dean? Should be already. I think that was one thing we're trying to get into the dashboard as well.
Okay. But would we expect that the student and staff climate and culture surveys, the information that you get from that by the end of this year, that might inform some early initiatives for next year that will kind of be presented with the data, but also a plan?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Just real quick, I know earlier in the year, maybe kind of midway through, you had kind of going along with attendance, you were working on improving our tardy numbers.
Yeah.
I wonder, has that gone well?
It's gone really well.
Okay.
A little bit of accountability goes a long way. Just a little bit. Really a credit to the assistant principals, Mr. Stenbridge and Mr. Taylor. Like, I take no credit for that. That is something that they spend a lot of time on daily. What they did at mid-year when we rolled that out, we were seeing lines out the door every morning. We're talking about like 75, 80, 90, 100 kids sometimes who were tardy to school, tardy to class. And I will admit this past week hasn't been great with the weather. But no, I mean, you come in the morning and it's down to maybe like 20 kids, 15, 20 kids who are on a regular day that are showing up tardy. So it was a piece of just, when I say accountability, it's not about like discipline accountability. It's like talking to the kids and engaging with them and encouraging them and reaching out to families when it came to tardy. So that's been a huge success for us.
So we've seen.
I totally forgot about it because it's been working. So it's like kind of it was like.
I just, we're talking about extra time on learning, and you know, that's something that's already here. We just need.
We're seeing some great
people to
changes
show.
already with our new team at the high school, and just for those of you who may not remember, actually Mr. Stenbridge is with us just for this year as interim, so I did send out that we have a new assistant principal to add to Mr. List's team. I don't know if she'll be able to come to the June 6th meeting, but you might want to ask if she could come and be to be introduced. If not, you'll get to meet her later over the summer into the school year.
Does she start on July 1st?
July 1st, yes. So she'll be able to attend our retreat, which is great because sometimes that doesn't work out and they miss the 3 days that we work together preparing for the school year at the end of July are really helpful for us in the team. Anything else for Mr. List?
Thank you.
Dr. Jordan.
I guess first, I thank you, Mr. List, for indicating that as far as attendance. I think, living a little bit on the margins in education can have like a profound impact. So I'm also really excited about the extra minutes time on learning. While that seems like a small number when you quantify it across the entire year, and then you add that over 3 years, or you add that over 10 years, and the number of minutes on learning that students have can and will have a profound impact. So thank you for that. I'm also very grateful to you all for finalizing and ratifying the contract. And we end this school year, we go into the next year, and knowing that our teachers don't need to start the year with that stress or that anxiety.
Pending the offer, but
yep.
it's going to happen.
You can't overstate the impact that morale or stress or anxiety in a teacher can have or impact the student learning of a child that's in one of those classes as well. So thank you for that. To kind of, Dawn, to segue what you indicated as far as the parent, student, and teacher culture and climate surveys. We're similarly, we'll have those working with Mr. Vernay. We've been administering them over the course of the year. We have had some small parent participation, and that might be on some of our communication of that, but we're hoping with this last push to really kind of ramp up kind of our parent communication on that. A lot of that survey data for us at the middle school has been in partnership with the Social Emotional Behavioral Academy at the University of Connecticut. That's the group that's been helping us with PBIS, our rollout of PBIS, and how we've been working with families on that. Our data that we're collecting when we speak to that Currently, we have a peer group of students and staff that are analyzing the data that we currently have, and we'll have a summer group of parents, students, and staff analyzing kind of our end-of-the-year data that may, hopefully, depending on when that's released, some of the preliminary Metro West Adolescent Health Survey data as well, to inform some of those next steps that we'll have. This is the SEB, or the Social Emotional Behavioral Academy, does a fidelity inventory solution matrix based off of the data that they've collected and their own observations of us, and that's something that we don't have a problem releasing to families to understand what we're trying to work on in that area. We have seen an increase in community involvement as far as trying to really make a concerted effort to bring family members into leadership and participation in our building, whether that's through our instructional leadership team or through kind of data analysis times that we have. Additionally, our organizations are really pushing out to get involved in the community. So for the first time in a long time, we've had some great participation in Celebrate Holliston from a lot of our students as well. And then we have a revisualized community service day that is tomorrow with our 8th grade there. And if we move on to the next slide. So thinking about the social emotional well-being, we're also thinking about the behavior of our students with our implementation of PBIS, with our tool, Kickboard tool. We have seen dramatic reductions in discipline, suspensions, and acts of hate at the middle school. Additionally, if you walk our hallways or are in our cafeteria, you're going to notice a calmer cafeteria, less students wandering the hallways, less graffiti in the bathrooms, reductions in tardies as well. This is not because of some disciplinary measure that we have taken or some hard approach to students. It is really, we believe it's due to positive reinforcement and our care approach with PBIS, which is compassion, acceptance, respect, and effort. And I believe that our students have really embraced that. And so have our staff. To date, we're at 24,000 care points. That's an astronomical number. We use Kickboard as our online system. As a parent, if you have not gone on to your personal login to view your student, you're missing out on some amazing comments on your individual child. And I would, those who are listening and those who are on the school committee, I encourage you to do that. Oftentimes, what is reported to you as a parent are grades, whether you go into Power School or whether at report card time, but also Kickboard provides a lot of the soft skill feedback on your student, on what they're doing in their classroom. Also learning something very specific, like your child picked up so-and-so's books when it were dropped on the ground. They did an amazing job, and you're learning how your student is engaging in character directly and not abstractly, that they're showing respect, but also what their actual action was. Within Ruler, we've completed the 1 through 8 modules, which we're happy with as far as that completion, or are looking to kind of identify what our strategies are over the summer. Our peer leadership group that's run by Mrs. Peters and Mr. Conant has completed 7 ADL lessons to our students, meaning these are student-led ADL lessons to our student population as a whole. As well, we have a new peer leadership group for half the semester that has been participating in adaptive PE and supporting students, 8th grade peer leaders supporting students in 7th grade adaptive PE. Adaptive PE is for students that might be in a network or basis program and may have varying abilities that may limit their ability to access the traditional health or wellness curriculum. Also, something I'm excited about as far as our social emotional development, but also staff and teacher, staff and parent involvement was in our challenge day. I know that Mr. List had that as well, but we had some members in the school committee that participated and several family members as well in the community that participated, and it was a great opportunity to discuss and participate in acknowledging various biases that exist. And it was a powerful day that I look forward to. While it was a pilot this year, I hope that it's something that we can expand and continue year to year as well. All right. Teaching and learning, we have been, as Mr. List indicated, we also have been piloting IXL successfully over the year. All of the goals that we set for ourselves, this includes the student learning goals that our teachers wrote for themselves, were all met. So every pilot goal that we, and all the hopes that we had set forth for IXL were met. The thing that we are most excited for, that we found the greatest impact was the tiered support action plan. This is more of like an individualized learning plan for every single student, regardless of ability, on what their target goals would be. So you could be an excellent and excelling student at the very absolute highest level, and there is an individualized growth plan for you within IXL, and you could be a student with significant gaps in areas, and there is a tiered support action plan for you as well. We are in our math curriculum review. We are pursuing Reveal as the resource. We are also partnering with All Learners Network as a group to look at like how we roll out Reveal, meaning the actual like changes or adjustments in instruction. But the feedback that we received we did a staff feedback protocol, but also written within our PD staff feedback is the need for professional development on differentiation, inclusion, and universal design learning. Specifically, how do we work with like significantly struggling students in an inclusion environment and receiving professional development on that. ALN is a group that is able to kind of partner with that with math as well. I'm also super excited to say our Wellness 2 program, which was all students can access. By the end of the year, we ended up at about 200 students that participate in Wellness 2, which is a course that's offered at the middle school. On average, that cluster or that cohort of 200 students demonstrated academic improvement as a result. We would say whether it's as a result, but a correlation to students that were in Wellness 2, there was a significant improvement in academic performance in a group that historically or typically struggles academically. As a part of the equity audit follow-up, we've been exploring kind of the impact of the structures that exist in our school that may impact equity. For that, we've been looking at like our class structures, and I know we've been way to how do we graphically look at our course offerings and the impacts of placements of students. If we took our entire student population and heterogeneously grouped them across and didn't take any account of resources, the need for different services and clustering that we have for students, you would see the top graphic would be more or less our class, our course makeup. These are, each little cluster is a course, and our core teachers teach 4 classes. So what you see above these 2 graphics, our current 6th grade is below, is ELA, the cards across the bottom are ELA Math, Science, Social Studies makes up Team 1. ELA Math, Science, Social Studies makes up our Team 2 in 6th grade. And then ELA Social Studies combined, and then Math and Science combined is our Team 3. That's our current 6th grade. There are similarities to a pure heterogeneous grouping that is above, but you notice that even though 6th grade is a heterogeneously grouped, we only have 1 ELL teacher, or we only have two special educators, there end up being still clustering or grouping that occurs and inequities that exist there. We good?
The screen was getting tired.
I'm talking too much. Is that what it is? So, as we look at increased special education costs, as we look at greater numbers of out-of-district placements, and while we're also looking for greater inclusive environments and creating the least restrictive environments that we can, we're also trying to make sure that the environments that we do create aren't setting students up for failure when they enter into the least restrictive environment as well, due to some of the high demands that are in those spaces. So can we move on to the next one? So this is our current 8th grade. This is, if you notice here, the color, and intentionally the color has moved down into below. Historically, our Black and brown non-Asian students predominantly find themselves clustered together in courses that exist at the middle school. In those classes are also students that are on IEPs, heavy levels of IEPs, our ELLs, 504s, and predominantly all of our low-income students cluster into a small group of sections that exist at the middle school, specifically in 8th grade. That is something that came up in our equity audit, and it's something that we tried to visually represent and really unpack to understand that further. We don't have solutions to this obstacle, but it's important to be transparent that it is there. Is something that we should be working to identify what solutions we should have to that. This is why we look at, and our staff discusses, and they've seen this, look at a significant approach next year to differentiation, professional development, and we're looking at our curriculum through a universally designed learning system.
And then our interventions will be both in STEM and humanities.
And similarly, which I'm appreciative of, Casey Conahan will move into the humanities role and will be kind of your humanities STEM-based or humanities intervention-based role, and then we'll have a STEM curriculum specialist, interventionist, and their ability to kind of help us assist with these groupings and look at this and what solutions that we can pursue it's a pleasant solution that we're looking for.
So is the goal, are you trying to get these more, I see a lot of color at the bottom of the screen.
I think that the issue is if
are
you
you trying to
look at-
spread this out?
Yes.
I would say, it's not even to say what the solution would be to it. It's that, like, our
This is what's
structure.
happened.
This is what's happening. So this is the current structures we have are this. And this
And
could be.
that's just by how you are putting the classes together.
Yes, so when you have, say, a student on, so if you have a limited number of special educators, or you have 2 special educators, you cluster them together, or you have students together. So you might have a group of 3 or 4 students put into one section. That becomes a constraint that you add to your schedule. We have one ELL student, one ELL teacher. We might have 2 to 3 to 4 level 1s or level 2s. They need to be clustered together as well. You have paraprofessionals that need to be linked to certain students. Some of those, depending on how the IEP is written, might be 1-to-1. So you may have a handful of adults that are in those spaces, but again, they're clustered into one space. The thing is,
on the bottom, so you've got team 1 on the left, and that bottom row of those 4 classes, they might have paras and special educators and
they do.
going
So
along
all
with
those bottom classes.
So that's why you have more of those students together.
Yes.
So that they can get those supports.
So
Because
they
that
have-
person might not be for just one, it might be supporting a number of children in that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
just trying to understand.
This is created with good intentions, yield this outcome, but then when you glance at it as the impact of multiple good intentions can have can have negative impact, and it's worth sometimes looking at the system as a whole and thinking about what is a solution or solutions or series of variables that can be modified in order to address that. I don't think there are simple solutions to this. I'm not coming here prepared to offer a solution to it. Other
Like
than
simple solutions, I'm just
no,
trying to
I'm thinking like what I would say is
understand
like,
how and why, like what you're showing us. So like those the top row have very few of IEPs or
Anything.
they're just kids do it.
yeah, those are historically in 8th grade our algebra courses,
Okay.
and then the algebra that when that cluster moves, where they go. So like because we're a small enough school, when they leave, they can't mix with a bunch of other students for their social studies and science classes, so they travel as a cohort to the next class. So you create an algebra course, they also go to their English course, their science course, and their social studies.
I have 2 quick questions about this, but I appreciate the transparency, first of all. Like, this is really visual and helpful, I think, to look at. So one is, if I'm understanding what you said, the algebra courses are primarily enrolling white and Asian students. Did I understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And then second, I know that you're still exploring solutions, but this is the time where we're making classes for next year. So are there any ideas, or how are you thinking about course enrollments differently for next year?
I think we're kind of in the midst of just trying to unpack this. I mean, having this graphic is new. It's something that like we're trying to work as a whole staff to understand this fully. It's something I think some have known like in their heads and have not figured out a way to kind of visualize it and look for solutions, because I think unfortunately some solutions just generate greater problems. I think there's and I want to represent this well, is this isn't about like whether you level or de-level. So when you create a level, you provide certain opportunities for some students. When you de-level, you provide opportunities for certain groups of students. Both have consequences. So it's not a binary argument or conversation. It's really a both and conversation. Is how do we just be transparent about what is occurring, and then understand what small changes or adjustments we can make. This is why, why a lot of like special education law, like a lot of special education strategy looks for the least restrictive environment, why it looks at inclusion, UDL, and the challenge with that is it's providing the appropriate professional development to teachers to be able to do that well. It's one thing to make a high-level decision on that. It's another thing to prepare teachers to be able to do that well.
And I think that's a big part of when we talk about. Joni and I will be presenting on June 6th about how we're going to transition to a more equitable opportunity for students in grade 8 for Algebra 1, and that's why we need to do this well next year. It doesn't mean we're going to fix it overnight, but to have better access points and better opportunities so that more students can access it, and we really need to plan that out well next year, and that's kind of the whole why we're aligning the interventionist roles. We're going to, with the new curriculum, I mean, all of this is really moving in the right direction. It's not going to be fixed overnight, and there's no easy answers as well, but I think it's just something we really need to look at more, especially where it's been pointed out even more so with our equity audit. We can't ignore it. It doesn't mean we're going to solve it necessarily, but are we at least creating more opportunities for students to access different programs as well?
Yeah, I would argue, so the equity audit, when it came out, it said to eliminate levels at the middle school, but that's a solution. It's not understanding the problem, and I think it's important to not focus on a solution as much as focus on making it very clear and transparent why they came to that as an idea, and understanding kind of the overarching view, the actual impact. These are our actual students that are in these classes. This is not a hypothetical model. This is the actual model.
I wouldn't be myopic on a single solution. There might be a few.
Yeah, and I think that every solution will also have consequences too.
You got to balance those out.
And what is the best solution we can manage, right? That's what it comes down to.
And is part of it, am I to understand one thing that would be helpful is also additional staffing to better support students and give you more flexibility with the schedule, right? Is that part of what would change what that looks
there's
like?
staffing, but I would say the greatest piece is training the current staff that we have. And I think that there could be a more concerted effort on that, on providing training on inclusion, on how to appropriately differentiate in the various courses that we have. If as a teacher, the teacher experience, and I want to validate the feelings of a teacher who's presented with students on a broad spectrum of ability in one space, if you're not equipped and properly trained to be able to do that, that's why we default into these places that we have. This is with the well intention of, let's have a class with a lot of supports in it, but in doing that, in that high support class, you end up with predominantly all of your students of color, non-Asian, your low-income students, your students on 504s, and the predominance of your students on IEPs. And regardless of the level of support, you're in an incredibly challenging environment. That's oftentimes where I'll cringe when I'm doing my walkthroughs with Dr. Kusko. We'll go into a space, and there might be like 5 adults in that space, and it's still the teachers complaining that's a really challenging space because you're bringing in a lot of challenges into that space, and it's also hard for students that are in that. It's traumatic to be in that space. It's hard for that student to be successful. So if you're bringing a student that has, you want to challenge them to be in a less restrictive environment, but you're also maybe setting them up for failure by bringing them into that environment.
Yeah, I think the real work is the tier 1, right? I mean, that's really what Dr. Jordan is pointing out. And this is something that, it's good teaching practices, but we need to constantly support our teachers because the needs of students have changed, and that's why we're providing some additional training specific to this area. This is really DEI work at its best. People think when we treat diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's about all learners, right? And that differentiation piece and trying to meet the needs of all learners in the classroom setting. And our teachers, they're navigating a lot more challenges now. So that's the training that's coming in, I think, will really help.
And so in addition to that too, and I was so glad to hear you talk about the increased instructional time and how that can be helpful. We have a late bus with the middle school, and I want to see us move into a place where we have we can convert some of that to additional instructional time, like through tutoring services or other. I want an ongoing conversation, so that when we look at this, hopefully next year or definitely in the years to come, that it looks different. But do you see a place for that? 40, 50 minutes of tutoring 3, 4, 5 times a week, and avail ourselves of the late bus.
What are you doing now? Because you had that on the slide. How many?
So we currently have math tutoring after school.
Every day or?
We have it. The tutoring is, I think, it's once a week. It's Mr. Venetian. He's received that stipend for that. We also have homework club every single day, other than Fridays, because we just don't run our late bus or have anything after school on Fridays. Attendance is low on that. I think that, and always the challenge is the students who come to after school homework club or even math support are oftentimes not the students who critically need it. And because it's an extracurricular or an after-school activity, it's hard to force or enforce making sure the students who need to be there are there. And then we also are very thoughtful as far as the intervention that we build into our school day about when we give intervention, say during a unified arts block, are we also limiting their ability to access an art class or music class that may give as well. it's a complicated, complicated thing.
How are we encouraging, though, kids to come to Homework Club and take advantage of those? Like, are we?
Just continuing to put it out there and let folks know. I mean, we have really good attendance of students that attend after school. It's just more like the
ones
kids
that try hard, right?
Yeah, we've got our late buses are pretty full, and it's a good number of students that stay after. And I try to at every like 5th grade parent night for 6th grade say like, it's free. It's free busing back to your house. It's free babysitting where we can hold your child for another hour so you can work a little bit longer and come a little bit later home. Utilize it. Your kid comes home, they've done all their homework, they're done for the night. Please leave your kid with us for an extra hour. So, yeah, it seems like,
There's other activities that they're giving up for that. That's the challenge, right?
Extracurriculars.
Arch forward.
Yep. You know, our PD surveys and our kind of feedback protocols that we've done have really spoken to the need to kind of pedagogical and instructional support around struggling students. And how do we do that? So trying to really get away from like abstract professional development and really looking at equity from the lens of like struggling students and whoever those are, and how do we structure our classrooms to support these types of students that are in front of us. I'm also just really excited to have the STEM curriculum specialist and interventionist that is there, and I think that's going to bring a lot of assistance with this area.
Do you know who that's going to be?
It needs to kind of get finalized and passed through. We've done our interviews, so hopefully we can announce something here soon.
Do you have anything else on the Arch Board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kime, you and Dr. Slaney, do you want to shift for us? Mr. Kime, you weren't really tapping, were you?
I was not. Hi, everybody. Welcome, new members. Excited to have you on board. Gonna try and go through mine. Under our communication practices, we're trying to communicate better with families, and sometimes it's our multilingual families that we're not able to reach sometimes. And so we may have family members come in and try and communicate with our nurses or our counselors or things like that, and we really didn't have something in place. So this year, we looked at the Lexikey translation interpretation service, and they help us communicate with families when we have a barrier that's happening there. Another way we tried to reach out to families this year is we did a Zoom webinar to present our culture and climate survey. We had 8 people, but it was a start in our first one. But Allie Curley and Brenda Morrow, they were trying to reach more families during that. So Allie was on there as our tech integration person. She was working the closed caption piece of it. And what Zoom did not have at that time was a translation piece to the captions. But since then, Dan has worked with Zoom, or they now do have that capability. So now we do have that capability to translate the closed captions that are there. We also, when we did our parent climate survey, last year we had 60 participants. This year we had over 200 participants. The survey is through PBIS, so it's a survey that we get, and so it was only in English and Spanish. So we had it translated into Portuguese, and we sent paper copies out to families we knew that was their primary language. And we did get some results back from those families. So we're excited about how we're trying to make gains in that area.
Can I just add something? And
Yep.
I had forgot to mention this earlier on our slides. Something that we also tried this year, and this was with all 4 principals and myself, we've done parent coffee hours. We've had 2 in person, and it's the 4 principals and myself, pre-K to 12, to try to give an opportunity to have that articulation piece and that component. And we also offered a Zoom one, and we're supposed to add one for June, so stay tuned. I'll be reaching out. We'll have one more by Zoom for parents. Again, trying to make sure that parents, if they can't come during the school day, they can access this at night as well. So I felt like we got really good feedback on this.
We have more people on Zoom.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay. All right, social emotional well-being. We did our climate surveys with our students, and pretty much we get all of our students because we do it in our engineering classes, so we get participation there. You heard about our parent survey. We also do at a staff meeting our staff climate and culture. We were able to unpack those in each one of those settings. We have a student advisory group, and we were able to unpack the student survey with them. And, you know, these surveys are 1 out of 4, and so we really look at 3 and above as an accomplishment. And then we ask the students, if it's below 3, what's going on in that area. When we did our parent survey, we were concerned that under interpersonal relationships with our subgroup of multiracial families, 5 out of the 7 categories were under 3. They were average 2.8, but there's an area where we want to figure out why families are feeling that way. And so we're trying to take a look at our different groups that we have across the building and see how we can do a better job at that. Some of the things we found is, you know, families weren't hearing that their child was a RISE student or something like that. So now what is done is, not only is it on Facebook, but an individual email is sent out to the families of a child who may be a RISE student of the week. We are really trying to strengthen our Tier 1 curriculum and instruction, and we're really trying to focus on behavior, social emotional learning, academics, and we're throwing in there attendance. I know we heard attendance under high school and middle school. It's an issue in our schools too. We have 62 students who have been out 10% or more of the year. And so that's like 16 days. We have 43 students who are 18 plus. Out of those 18 plus, so 11 of them haven't been absent in May. And so we're tracking these students, we're communicating with families, we're trying to find out whether it's they've been out sick because, you know, pneumonia, strep, everything's going around, or is it vacation, or is it they don't want to come to school. So we are trying to do a better job at figuring that out, and those students come to our student assistant team that we have every week with our guidance and administrators.
Do you have that breakdown?
What's that?
You mentioned a number of example reasons. Do you have a breakdown? Is there a primary reason, or is it?
There's no real, you know, reason. You know, and those are the things that we want to focus on because it is an area, if you look at how the state evaluates us, our attendance is something they evaluate us on, and we, you know, didn't make the grades we needed to, grades, lack of better words, and so it has been a huge focus of ours this year to try and figure that out.
Is there a specific group of students that are doing this?
We haven't identified that yet. And I think with the data dashboard that Dan talked about, I think that's going to be an area where we will be able to, because Power School doesn't make it easy to look at a subgroup as a data dashboard will when we're able to do that.
We can't triangulate it, so everything is done manually.
Yeah, which is not easy.
That's why.
And Brenda Morrow right now is doing it all manually for me, and so a big plug for that. And so this visual is pretty much how we're looking at our professional development. We really want to focus on these areas in the school. And like I said, we've thrown attendance in there as well because we feel like students not being in school, they're not learning. And how do we do better with that? We've got a ruler implementation team in place. In our February and March PD, we did ruler training with our staff. We did not roll this out with our students this year. We rolled it out with our staff. And in slide 4, I'll show we created a staff charter in how staff wants to feel in the building. And so we have a group that's going to be working this summer to look at how do we roll this out with the students. And so we're going to have dates and things for teachers to do their lessons next year. But that's summer work that's going to be created. Jeriel has found some funding for us to take a look at, our PBIS, our ruler, and some of our, trauma-informed and, our climate study group. And then I've already talked about the charter, if we'll go on to the next one. In math, we are adopting Eureka Squared as our new math curriculum, pre-K, or pre-K through grade 5. This is after probably a year and a half study and then a pilot in what best aligned with the state and the state standards. So we're excited about that. We've already started training with staff. 2 PD at our PD day, and previous to that at one of our curriculum meetings. Our science, we did do a rollout of science in the classroom in grade 3 and 4. I think you heard me present in December or January regarding that, and that has been going along fine. The teachers are switching every 2 weeks with their classroom. With all the days off we had, there was a little slow start to it, but teachers are now in a routine of doing that switching. We're continuing with our writing curriculum and maps. We started that last year, and then this year we're continuing on scope and sequence. Ilsa O'Brien has been helping the grades with that. We are refining our win block. Our win is what I need block. In each grade has a 30-minute chunk every day. One of the things that's been very helpful is the iReady diagnostic. We piloted this in some of the classrooms, and we saw some significant gains, and I shared that with you at our mid-year update of the classrooms who were doing iReady versus STAR, and then having the interventions in between. And that's why we put forward that this is something through the budget process that we wanted for all of our students. What became accessible for all of the students after that mid-year was all the teachers could use the iReady if they wanted to as an intervention tool to help their students. And we are also exploring the AI and assistive technology in some of the tools that our teachers are using.
Is there anything specific there you're looking at, or just more of assessing what's out there?
Just assessing what's out there and playing around, get teachers to play around with it, and having students have some access to it, limited in what we want them to at our age level, because we are grade 3 through 5.
Yep.
And then lastly, here is our staff charter. Through probably curriculum, staff, PD days, we really wanted teachers to identify how they wanted to feel in school. And so, from a list of, 8 or 9, we narrowed it down to 4, and we're able to put, statements that go along with each one. I won't read each statement, but teachers want to feel respected. They want to feel supported. They want to feel connected, and they want to be safe. And so those were big items that they wanted. And so we want to bring this charter to the students next year and how we roll this out with the students and how they are feeling. A lot of work has gone into our school climate and our school climate committee. We've got a group, Katie Anderson, Brielle Chadsey, Allie Curley, Ashley DeRoy, Wendy Krause, Brenda Morrow, and Brendan O'Connell have really focused in on, how do we distribute the leadership across the building. David Jordan will often say collective efficacy. And so once we get, more people involved, they can get more people involved instead of administration trying to get more people involved. And so, one of the things they've looked at is how do we rebrand Miller? And so one of the things that's out there that we're working with is welcome in, expect greatness. And so we're just looking at how we can get kids, students to want to be at the Miller School. And we're trying to do more with the PTO. We've had some of the biggest PTO meetings we've had in a lot of years prior to COVID. We've had 15 to 20 parents at some of our PTO meetings. They've helped out with, our readathon, our Mathapalooza, and we're having an ice cream social between Placentino and Miller on June 7th. So come on out, 6 o'clock to 7:30. That's what I have.
Questions for Mr. Khan?
Can you talk a little bit more about the wind block? So I'm curious about, it sounds like you're using the iReady data to...
In some of the classrooms, because not all of them have it.
Okay.
So they're also using the dibbles that they do 3 times a year. They're also using, some other fluency measures that they may use. But they're progress monitoring. They're working with ILSA to identify the areas of weakness. It might be word study that they're doing in that time. It's really looking at where a student might be struggling or an area, because if a kid is excelling in an area, it's an area where they can work on or expand in their math or their writing or anything in literacy.
And how long are those cycles?
30 minutes.
Sorry, the cycle that kids go through?
It's really, it's not, they're not necessarily going to the reading tutor, it's in the classroom, but we are looking at a 6 to 8 weeks in those periods.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Khan?
All right, moving now to
Thank you.
Dina and Dr.
I feel like they already presented for me, and I can just ask any questions, and we can go forward.
It's your time.
Thank you. I put pictures of lots of cute kids in here to wake us up. So we really have been using social media to tell our story, really looking at today's parent and how we can give you into our building to see what we're doing, where I, as a working parent, I'm not able, well, I have middle schoolers, they don't want me there, but I'm not able to get into the school as much. So looking at opportunities for our families to be able to see into our school and using social media for that. And being able to see some events that might not seem like they would be positive. So we had safety drills at Placentino this year, and where that is something I wish our world didn't require that we did. That picture on the left is Officer Woods in a preschool classroom with a student. So making sure that they see community helpers and that their only job is to stop, look, and listen. That's what we tell our students. You just look towards an adult, you stop, look, and listen, and they'll tell you what to do, and they'll keep you safe. That next picture, we're trying to celebrate what we're doing in our buildings. These were our art teachers from last year who did a elementary complex-wide mural for all of our students K to 5. So each student and adult created their own little picture, and that is in our connector hallway between Placentino and Miller. That's displayed now so they can see themselves. You should see the pictures walk by. Actually, you can see them kind of pointing up at themselves.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that's really neat.
It's so cool.
That's really
It's
great.
so cool. We're looking at ways to bring family members, community members in. We have lots of classrooms who have families that come in and they are teaching a lesson or they're sharing something they do, and the teacher is able to show out through that classroom. But we wanted to show something that we did through the community. So we have a teacher whose husband works for Boston Dynamics, and they brought Spot in. Now, I had to break some hearts to say we didn't have an extra $300,000 hanging around for Spot to roam our hallways, but they learned about coding. We were able to do that K-2 and share that with our families.
And thank you for not putting that in your priority need.
No, it was a capital request that Mr. Boudet totally wiped out for me. But we do something called March Mail. So it's the way that we celebrate and help promote writing across our school. It also ties care. So students write to each other across the school. They learn about our second graders become the mail carriers. They learn about that community helper, but then they learn about how to address an envelope. We have stamps. They get delivered. They get sent back. They're sticklers for the address. They get sent back if they're not. And that is a whole month-wide process that we wanted to share with families that our students are not only loving, but really engaging in hands-on learning. Well, the eclipse was the biggest hit. I thank Dr. Kuska and Mr. Boudet for allowing us to. We were one of the only schools who were actually in school during the eclipse, so we were able to get eclipse classes and have that science. That not once in probably their lifetime, but in a long part of their lifetime that they would be able to experience that, and they were able to experience it school-wide. So that was pretty amazing. The next slide, please. We've been using S'more as a platform more and more. It's helping us be able to track if people are actually opening our newsletters. We know we're sending them out. We know that we're sharing. It's helping us actually see if they're reading them. And they are, well, at least they're opening them. I can't tell if they're reading them or not, but they might be scanning. And what we're really trying to do is utilize advertising strategies of getting people to be able to scan really quickly, maybe of what they want to do. We use things like new, important, and highlight it so people can kind of look at that. We use Seesaw, where the rest of the district uses Google Classroom. So Seesaw is a digital learning portfolio that we use at Placentino as a means to communicate, but also to give a glimpse, an adult a glimpse into their child's learning. So students post their own work, there's digital portfolios, there's recordings, and there's also teachers are able to create lessons on there as well. So parents are able to comment, they're able to give their student feedback as well and see what's happening in the classroom. Next slide, please. So we are also in year 3 of the PBIS Academy. It's something that has really shifted over the 3 years of looking at moving from just care cards, where I think it was probably about 5 years ago, which was really exciting for kids, but really how do we look at data to be able to improve to have less unexpected behaviors and to increase our expected behaviors. So being able to have care norms that are across the different aspects of our school. So on the right, there's that, we have posters all over our school that our students get lessons specifically in each area, so that those are our norms in the classroom. We have norms on the bus, we have norms in the hallway, we have norms in the lunchroom. And of course, we have to celebrate their success. So we do different challenges throughout the year. The first one was individual challenges of how many care card students actually were able to get collectively. They voted. We had a care dance party. You haven't lived until you've danced with 700 pre-K to second graders. One student said, "Whoo, Dr. Slaney, you got moves." And I was like, "Oh, that is such confidence after living with 2 middle school girls. I didn't feel very like that at home." We also have been, as Mr. List talked about, Handle with Care is something really that has helped. We've always had a very strong relationship with the police department and in different organizations around town, but this is a way that we can have a, as Dr. Kuska said, not an intrusive lens into what has happened, but more that this is a student that just needs Handle with Care, and we're able to, all of our staff knows about it, so we're able to share that out with every adult that that child interacts with so that they know there might have been something that we just have to have a little extra TLC. We have also been using the culture and climate surveys, which is, by the way, through PBIS that we're using across the district. We had our staff survey, and as Mr. Kimes said, your goal is to get higher than 3. We were at 3.26 collectively across all measures, so that was great. Our families, we were at 3.39. It's not normed for pre-K to 2 students, so we've created our own. It's not out of a 3, it's thumbs up, thumbs down, you know, that piece, because we're giving it to our K to 2 students. And very exciting, our pre-K teachers wanted to give it to our older preschool students, so they're giving that as well. We're currently doing that, so we don't have that data yet, but we will. On the next slide, please. We are also implementing Ruler, and like Mr. Kimes said, we and Dr. Jordan, we have gone through all of the adult modules. So the goal that Ruler really recommends is the first year is for adults to learn about their emotional intelligence, for adults to learn about being able to identify those emotions. We have a joke at our school that it is no longer okay for you to say fine to the answer of how are you. We all kind of look at each other and take a deep breath. It's really hard to label those emotions. I challenge you to not use the word fine or okay when someone asks you that question. And if it's hard for us as adults, imagine how it is for students. They don't have that emotional vocabulary. And that's what we want to start our youngest learners, and we'll be doing that, rolling it out for next year. We've been looking at how we can really merge and triangulate these different initiatives of PBIS, our trauma-informed instruction. We're really proud of our Placentino staff. We have the most staff who's enrolled in our trauma courses, Ruler, and culturally responsive education. So for the final project, for many of our teachers who are in the Trauma 4 class, they actually chose Ruler, and they have been using the mood meter, which is over on the left, which is where students are identifying how they're feeling, and using that to help take a temperature of the classroom, and they presented that data as their final project. We also had a group finish the Culturally Responsive Education Year 1 Academy. And our culminating project was around how to bring more windows, mirrors, sliding glass doors into our curriculum. And we are really hard on ourselves, and we had a coach who said you have to start somewhere, right? And we presented, and it was really great. Our team, led by Adrian Beaver for this, was able to show our monthly school-wide read-alouds, to be able to show that we have digital bookshelves, to show that we've been able to increase our number of books in our library for our students whom English is not their first language. So we've been able to really purchase more Portuguese books for our library. Portuguese is the highest spoken language other than English in our school, and that's been really changing for students to be able to take a book home to their family, that their family can read to them. We also learned that some of our kids can read in Portuguese, and we would never have known that otherwise if they didn't have a book at their level to be able to read. So that's a goal of ours, to be able to increase that, not only for our Portuguese students, but maybe for our English-speaking students who want to be able to do that as well. The next slide, please. So teaching and learning. I talked a little bit about the culturally responsive education. I think you've heard about our curriculum reviews. We've been working really hard to create a cohesive, multi-tiered system of supports. It is a work in progress, and it's something that we're going to continue to work on. That being said, we are having an increase in change in our population in Holliston, and I think it's really important for us to embrace it, but know, and I think something that we need to work on for next year is to be able to help our students be able to meet the needs of all learners, including our multilingual language learners. That used to be English language learners, and now it's MLL. To give you an idea, we've had 14 new students, not in preschool, because we always have new preschoolers come in with the integrated preschool. 14 new students joined Placentino since September. Half of them have been Portuguese as their first language. And of that half, all of them were level 1 or 2. So that is a blessing and amazing for our students in our community, and our teachers need to be able to have the tools to be able to support all learners, specifically these learners. So that's something that we've started to look at and that we're going to dive more into next year. We've really been looking at, as I've talked about a lot with you, is around the new dyslexia guidelines. Placentino has really embraced this, and I think that I'm really proud of the work really led by Jenny Mann that we've been doing. So we've had multiple PD for our staff around understanding dyslexia and structured literacy, being able to rethink what they thought they knew about dyslexia and now what they know about dyslexia, redesigning instruction so it's multisensory. You asked about like what are some of the examples of AI. They had a really exciting AI PD in January, and they're like, we want to know more. And we're like, yes, but we have to do phonics and fluency. So we merged it, how to use AI to help advance their phonics and fluency instruction. So that was one of the professional developments that we did. As you've heard us talk about, we really have been looking at our universal screenings, specifically DIBELS, across K-2. Now more diving into IDEPEL is our French DIBELS, being able to look at that data and correlate it with the English data. Being able to share very transparently with families, but also having teachers actually be the ones who administer the DIBELS, which is a shift for them. Before it was our reading team only who did it, and you have a little bit more ownership over an assessment when you give it yourself. We also adopted Amplify, which is the electronic piece of DIBELS, and we've been using progress monitoring tools. If you go to the next page, you'll see that this is a graph of what our progress monitoring report looks like that our families get. So every month, any student who falls in the yellow or red will get a progress monitoring measure so that we can make sure that they are following that aim line, that we are meeting their needs. And Hillary, you asked about like how long. We look at 6 weeks, but we look at that, actually you can see it's monthly that we're actually monitoring, and we have to change our instruction if we see kids falling off that aim line. And we do that through our SAT process. We've had more and more students that we're talking about okay, we have to bring this student up because they are not making effective progress. What do we need to do differently? Let's start with the Tier 2 instruction. How do we shift it? If that's not working, do we need to move to evaluation? So we're doing that quicker. Thinking about Tier 1 instruction, you can look at the top. We've been doing a lot of work. I believe the middle school is with Landmark, and we've been using Landmark's teaching principles about how to create access for our students and looking at how much repetition a student needs. So instead of us, I think we do a pretty good job for our Tier 1 students providing that 4 to 14 is probably more like 4 to 30 exposures to a concept. And then I think we do a pretty good job for struggling students. What we're working on is our students who are actually above grade level. We don't have the title gifted, but how do we expose them to a concept but be able to then extend them so they don't have to kind of sit in something for that whole time, and then they can maybe get bored, or maybe there's unexpected behaviors, and where can we actually make use of their learning time. So that's a shift that we're really thinking about for next year as well. We've been working on family engagement. Jess Beatty and Lisa Robinson, Jenny Mann, myself, Kathleen Pastori, she was our interim assistant principal when Mrs. Cordero had her baby, and we just keep her around, and she does presentations with us. She's a literacy specialist as well. And we did 2 presentations through CPAC this year. Again, demystifying dyslexia and then digging into the supports. And then I'm really excited on June 5th, sponsored from Title I, we're going to have an evening open to all parents around how to support your child's literacy over the summer, so we can keep that kind of train moving. And then finally, Arch 4, talent and resources. You heard a lot about our paraprofessional liaison. You heard a little bit about the evaluation work that Dr. Kusko's done for us. And I think that I really want to talk about our culture and climate. As you saw from last year, we were maybe a high 2 for culture and climate with our staff, and now we are, I think, a 3.25, which really feels like strong growth. Much like Mr. Keim talked about, we have a culture and climate committee that's run really and spearheaded by teachers. There's a difference when they send out an idea and I send out an idea, so that actually has been working in bringing our community together. They've started monthly snack carts where different teams are walking around the school with snacks that they're providing, and it's just like a way to get into each other's classroom. Education can be really isolating, especially in elementary school. You're with your kids all day long, and being able to get in. I think one of my favorite activities is they had us do a rock, paper, scissors challenge where we had beads and you had to rock, paper, scissors and you won the beads. The kids loved it. They were like, where are your beads? And I lost the first time someone challenged me. So that's a little bit about what we're doing at Placentino.
Great. Questions?
I have one. Sorry.
No.
So thinking about like the kids between both of your buildings, and as they walk from Placentino down the ramp to Miller, they're still learning to be readers as they go into 3rd grade. So I'm wondering about like all that work that you just described around supporting students' reading skills. How are you kind of working together to kind of transition and kind of keep that coherent to 3rd grade?
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go?
Sure. Start.
So we are both using, I think for the first time, we're more coherent in the measures that we're using. And, Mr. Keim mentioned progress monitoring as well. We might be doing it at a little bit higher frequency at Placentino. I think that's just because of the systems and structures that we have at Placentino. And being able to work, like right now, we are starting our placement meetings. It is not as easy as one might think, and we do a lot of looking at groupings and how do we group students so that we can have we don't end up in a situation like Dr. Jordan was talking about, but at the same time be able to have a classroom where students have a like group together so the teacher is able to give them what they need. And we've been working a lot with Dr. Lurie, who is the student service director at Miller, to be able to provide that. I think the other piece is around Ilsa O'Brien works very closely with Jenny Mann as well, where we're all looking at the same data. We're now all going to be using iReady, which is the same learning pathway, so that's going to carry as well. I think in general our communication has really increased. It is going to look different. They're still learning to read, and now they're in 3rd grade. Some of the pieces that we're using, for instance, we've adopted Hegarty, which is a phonemic awareness approach, and Miller does that as well, too. They do the Jump Start piece, which I forget the name of it, but it's for kids who still need intervention. So we send that information with them as well.
And I have special education teachers and Dr. Lurie and our adjustment counselors and kind of our continuum teachers that will go over to transition meetings that will help in us knowing them earlier and knowing the parents earlier as they move across.
And Mrs. Mann and Mrs. O'Brien meet together to talk about these are kids who've had support. We're trying really hard so it's not a cliff, right? So it's not that they're so supported at Placentino and then they're not because of our different structures. And I think the other thing that we have really worked hard on at Placentino is identifying students earlier and not kind of having that waiting approach. And that's really come from looking at our progress monitoring data. And really, you know better, you do better.
I'm gonna just add in that also, that transition also happens from Miller to middle school as well. I think that's been helpful as for the relationship of Denise and Conahan, our interventionist there, as far as the continuity of the information and data and how we're tracking it on whether it's on tier 3 level, but also on just a tier 2 level, where students are in their literacy, and how that continuity goes from Placentino to Miller to the middle school, so that whatever that intervention or wherever that gap is, we're continuing with that work as it transitions.
Yeah, I think, hopefully you'll see, I know we talked a little bit long-windedly tonight, but it's hard not to celebrate all of the wonderful things that are happening. And I'm not going to sit here and say everything's great and we're doing everything perfectly, but what I will say is we are working incredibly hard with our teachers, our paras, all of our support staff, our administrators. The thing that I'm most proud of is the work this team has done together. We have really done what we set out to do. After we wrote the strategic plan, we came out of COVID, where we've actually done what we set out to do, is have that alignment pre-K to 12 plus, and that's one of the reasons, talking about that transition piece for us reevaluating the curriculum roles, to have those same 2 roles at all 4 buildings. I think that's going to be a huge transition, and Dr. Menard will oversee those 8 people and 4 roles. Everything we've done, we constantly are reevaluating, and you'll see the carryover with the work that they're doing. So I personally am just so proud of this team and the work that they've done together, and it's a kudos to all of our teachers and staff throughout the district as well.
And just one more thing on transition. Some of our friends in 2nd grade, their teachers or the adult working with them will walk them over, starting in May, getting used to seeing where they may be working next year. And then the same thing with some of our 5th graders going over to middle school. We've started, some individual walks over so the students know, what to expect. We do a whole school where we meet and talk with, and they go to the classrooms, both 2nd into 3rd and 5th into 6th. But there are some of those individual friends that make those visits earlier more frequently.
This is a question for all 4 now that we're complete. What's the one area, by the way, top area where you think you need help?
To find help. That we need the most growth on, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So opportunity area.
Opportunity area. I think for Placentino, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that teaching and learning, and we need to continue to keep growing. We have done such a shift in our instruction over the past 2 years, especially in literacy, and now we have a new math program coming in, and it's really important that we look at that as curriculum materials, and that we're not looking at that as the curriculum. So that tier 1 instruction in supporting our teachers to be able to create access and inroads no matter where a student is. We've done a lot of work there, but that's a road that we have to continue.
To do it well is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, and we had a whole district-wide meeting yesterday, and where do we want to focus our PD next year? It's really looking at tier 1 instruction, and how are we meeting the kids' needs in tier 1? If we're doing a really good job there, we may need less support in tier 2 and 3. So it's looking at, how do we roll that out? How do we roll out the new math instruction so that, it's engaging the students in the classroom. So those are some areas that we're taking. What are the best teaching practices?
Yeah, he's talking about, yesterday we had our monthly full admin team at Miller. We meet at Miller monthly, and we're already working on PD and goals for next year.
I would say...
Chairs going on over there.
I know, right?
You made Dr. Jordan's day just to be able to come back to the big day right now.
I think having a strategic approach to the through line of the continuity of the journey of the child from pre-K through 12th grade. That every variable, everything, and how do we connect those to each other. Sometimes we focus in silos of whether that is Placentino silo, Miller silo, middle school silo, or the high school silo, or this teacher's class a silo, that teacher's class a silo, or math being a silo not connected to English, and how are all the matrices of these different things and interconnectedness. We talk about the middle school, and I appreciate Jamie for saying that language matters. Literacy, why it's such an essential piece, is also the words and language that we're using with children, and how that transcends multiple subjects and multiple grades. One challenge we've had in the middle school that we're continuing to overcome, and I imagine that across multiple schools, is we may say the exact same thing, more or less, in 9 different ways, in 15 different classes, and the experience of a child with a limited executive functioning skill is that was 30 different things that they just experienced. But if it's an adult, they think they all said the same thing.
I think for the high school, it's 2 different areas. It's really being able to identify student needs, so the data dashboard is going to be huge for us, and then using that to support teachers with Tier 1 intervention supports. And as was said before, if we can really solidify those, we can then limit the amount of need for Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. Additionally, it's really focusing on the equity of experience for kids, making sure that what is happening for a sort of like a 9th grader coming in, their English, their math, his social studies, that experience, no matter who they have as a teacher, no matter what's going on in that classroom, that it is focused in the same areas, and a lot of work there will be done focusing in on the schedule next year.
Thank you so much. Very much
you.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like they need a weekend break.
I think so.
Hey, so it is 9:30. We are an hour and 10 minutes late. No, that was a great presentation. Thank you to our principals. But we have now arrived at our central office administrator's update. So, Dr. Kreska.
Just a couple quick things. I mentioned Influence 100 already, but last night we had our 3rd Holliston Coalition Against Hate and Bias meeting, and given the time of year, we did not have as much turnout as we had in the past. That being said, we brought in Carlos Hoyt, who's going to help facilitate some of this work with us, and we are starting to map out what the work's going to look like. And over the summer, I'm going to work with Travis Ahern, the town administrator, and our assistant town administrator, and Jim Barrett from the police force, and then also Jackie Weiner from Holliston Youth and Family Services. Actually, Dr. Jordan is one of our members, and he was there last night. So we really started to map out what the work's going to look like in the journey moving forward to sustain some of this work in the community. And I'll be planning with them over the summer. There'll be some communication going out to talk about what we did last night, and then kind of the roadmap going forward. But we'll need time over the summer, and we'll share that out in the fall. We'll schedule some meetings for the fall and throughout the school year for that community work to happen. I did want to also mention that we have our equity discussion as well as our curriculum discussion on June 6th at the meeting. And then last night I wanted to point out we had, was it just last night or 2 nights ago now? I think it was 2 nights ago, National Honor Society. I was here at the high school for that. Always a wonderful thing, and kudos to Mr. Kodze, who does an awesome job with our National Honor Society. Hundreds of students at this point go through the program. Service learning, I think someone mentioned, is on May 28th. The Global Citizen presentations are on May 30th, and I think I'll stop there at this point. So, thank you.
Sure. Dr. Bernard.
I'm going to pass down so you guys can see it. I shared with teachers today a teaching and learning survey, and I'll share the data with you during our June 6th presentation. Other than that, I'll wait until the June 6th presentation.
This is something that we talked about earlier in the year when we talked about the curriculum work that people were doing, about trying to get some feedback from teachers as we plan for next year and try to roll out stage 2 as well of our UBP curriculum plans.
Okay. Mr. Boudet.
I got a number of items. I'll do them as quickly as I can for you. The auditorium wall work has started. The materials showed up. We've gone through the vetting process with regards to Corey's and Safis's for their fingerprinting. While, maybe not the original schedule we'd hoped for, at least it's moving forward now. So that's happening. James Keast is obviously overseeing the project. There's been a lot of chatter about the playgrounds. We have a number of things that are going on with them. Some of them have been going on for a little while now. I'll start at the Miller one because that's the easiest. Most of it's aesthetics with regards to the issues. We do have one quote for replacing the surface, which is not a great quote price-wise, but it's also what has to be now. James is actually getting 2 more quotes on that. We went to our original vendor, who I've worked with in the past, and got the initial quote. So because the price that came in on, we have to get 2 other quotes on it. So the Placentino playground is probably the next simplest thing that's going on. There was an element that was viewed as potentially a safety issue. We took that element out of that piece of the element out of the larger element, have boarded up the sides of it to prevent students from getting harmed in that way. So while the element will be less interesting at this stage, until we can come up with a suitable solution, it's now no longer there. And the more difficult one is the playground that's in the back, the 1st and 2nd grade classroom. We ended up remulching the area, which is normally a summer project for us, but with the rains that we had this winter as opposed to snow, we've had an ongoing issue there with mulch leaving the area. It's just topographically, it's not in a great place. We've added small retaining walls over the years. We've tried to, at one point we had a volunteer from a local company come and regrade the whole land as much as they could. So part of that area is kind of closer, part of the wastewater treatment plant, I should say, so that we can't either go down too far and move too many things. It's a challenging space, and unfortunately, with the schools and the amount of land we have, we don't have a lot of excess land. So we're working with a number of solutions. We did have a local landscaper come in and give us their ideas. James and I are probably working on that space last, just because it is the toughest solution, I'll say, because it's not just a simple like fix or paint or repair or something. So that one has to be a summer project at best, if not something more significant. So we're working through all that. Then one other facilities update. We instituted last month the Dude Solutions for doing our work order tracking for both technology and for facilities. There's currently, as we started, about mid-month in April, something like that? Mid to late April.
After April break.
I just took a quick look. There's 185 work orders that are in there. Some of them are test ones, so I haven't figured out how to delete them out. Can't seem to delete them. There's 185 work orders. 108 of them have been completed. So, but some of the completed ones, truthfully, are the test ones. So, again, we have work orders going through there. We have a good tracking system for that, and we're working through some of the glitches right now, some of the technology glitches, and we're moving forward with that.
And the staff have the ability to...
Yes, everybody except for our maintenance guys has the ability to use it. We haven't figured out how to use it. The company's not figured out what to do with apostrophes and names. So there's a slight issue with that. So.
But it's good because I even can go in there and Mr. Boudet, and we can actually see which tickets have been closed out already. So it's going to really help expedite our, prioritizing the needs and having access to.
And actually, I think the biggest advantage or the help is going to be when somebody's out, so that there's other people who can more easily pick up the work, as opposed to trying to, say, hey, I got these 6 things done. Let me see what's going on over there with one of my maintenance mechanics. So it's I think that's where it's going to allow us to utilize our resources more efficiently across buildings, as opposed to just being attached to a building. So those are the easy ones. Now the hard one. I'll try to do this for you quickly. Is it not here though?
School choice.
Yes, we're doing the school choice. No, I don't want to. There's a different thing I'm doing first.
Okay. You're going to share?
Yeah. I'll do it. Had it up and I went away from it.
I don't know about this. I'm a little worried.
Why?
I just know what you're doing.
For those people who've been on the committee for a while, both of you, I'm going to just quickly race through this because I know we don't want to take a ton of time on this. I normally do a presentation on school choice that kind of explains the process. The newer members, while you may have an inkling about what it is, this is just a quick little thing, and actually other districts have used this. So the school choice program, school choice laws, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 76, Section 12B. And basically what that requires is that schools are assumed to participate in the school choice program unless the school committee votes to not participate. That doesn't do anything to the existing students, it just means you're not going to accept any new ones. So, but again, it has to be an annual vote. This year, this vote's coming a little later just because of complications with the budget, complications with the teacher's contract, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, there's still some ongoing complications, obviously, because, again, needing a override vote. I work with the principals on coming up what I believe is at least a reasonable approach at this time that we don't think is going to be negative to our class sizes.
Keith, is that just based on receiving or also?
We have no control over who leaves.
Okay.
Again, this is, the school choice program is one that's driven by the families with children. And if there's something that, whether they don't like the district they're in, a lot of districts offer staff members the ability to go to attend school where they work. They use the school choice program, well, I say illegally. Nobody's really watching it at 9:40 at night, illegally. You can't create seats for a staff member without making it available to everyone.
Okay.
But, am I whining about that? Maybe.
No.
School committee votes to open seats. They can be very specific to openings or very general. What I mean by that is us having programs in Placentino for French immersion or Montessori. You can open up a third grade French immersion seat as opposed to just a third grade seat. So you can be specific, and we have been in the past. Preferences can only be given to siblings of current students. This is where they break the law. So if we have a current student in school who has a sibling who wants to come here, that would be the first cut. And you'll see that we actually have one in kindergarten this year who's a sibling of a current student. So, and we've always tried to keep that. We try to keep families together. Something about keeping families together, that seems like a school thing to do. The child must be a non-resident, and what I mean by that is we very often get requests from people, well, I'm thinking about moving if I can keep my kids in school here. I can't offer a seat to someone who lives here because they live here, they're entitled to education here. So, transportation responsibility of the parent. While we have policy that allows us to transport now, we didn't used to. Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
By law, transportation is still their responsibility unless we offer to provide it. And over the years, occasionally, when a route has worked out, we're not driving into the middle of Milford or over to Upton or something to go get a child. Space available on an outer route, around the outer limits of the town, that a family would bring their child to. So again, it's happened occasionally. It's not a regular occurrence. Once a child is enrolled, they get to stay here, and as long as they're a resident of Massachusetts. Because the billing system, the way the billing system works, is they do it through Chapter 78. So, actually it's General Aid to the town. But what they do is, so if a child comes here from pick your town, then loses $5,000 in aid, and we as the schools get $5,000 in revenue for that. So they steal from the town and give to the schools, and that was the purpose of the program, because they wanted schools to be able to improve at that time. When ed reform came into place and the school choice laws came in slightly actually before that, it was trying to encourage towns to support their schools. So if you were losing money and losing enough money, you would say, hey, maybe I should do something here, or why are they leaving? Our school choice history, I have a thing in the packet on that, so we're going to skip over that. Rationale, I have something in the packet on that, we'll skip over that so I don't have to repeat myself. The process. The principals go throughout the budget process to determine available seats. That's happened very recently because of that. We advertise in the local paper to generate interest, which we have already done 2.5 months ago. Proposal we made to school committee to create seats, what I'm doing tonight. Again, the school committee votes to open the seats. We collect the applications and hold the lottery, which we've done. Well, I haven't done the lottery, we've collected applications. Town meeting votes a couple of weeks ago on the budget, and if successful, we offer the seats. If someone applies after the initial lottery, we create a subsequent list, and it's just in a first-come, first-served basis. And before November, we conduct a second lottery to kind of rework the deck chairs. It usually means nothing because, again, we've already accepted all of our seats. So, thank you. From there.
Beautiful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Dan. I know you were enthralled. And you used to watch when you were on FinCom.
The way it jumped all over the place was just, phenomenal.
Well, it's the way it should be. It should be something that keeps you alive at 9:30 at night.
Dynamic.
43.
Thank you.
Who's counting?
What did you say?
Dynamic.
Dynamic, yeah.
So, next, I'm going to call up the thing that's in your packet, the report that's in your packet under...
The memorandum. With
Yep, the memo. I got to share it now.
It does look like perhaps, just perhaps, there are 45 position seats listed, totaling, you have 43.
I'm going to skip down to, the second page of it anyway, except that that's not, oh, I shared the wrong thing. This one. So, what you're looking at here is school choice history. Get this out of the way so I can zoom. So you'll see historically, still may not be able to see it. Historically, we've been as high as 297 students back in 1995, as low as, 196.4 students a few years ago. We've basically leveled out in this range of, in the last few years, somewhere between 100 and 110. The challenge with school choice, obviously, if we raise the number way up, and we can't come back in a few years when all those kids start graduating and we don't have the space behind them, you'll end up with declining revenues, which again, you try not to do. It's a great program for us. We've taken advantage of it. You can see the monies we've received over the years, in general, about $600,000 now. It's high as over $1 million. So it's been a good program for the town of Holliston and for the school specifically. But again, you have to manage it. You just can't leave it open because you can get in trouble, class size and things of that nature. I can say that I can at least talk about the last 24 years of this. We've never hired a teacher for this, so it's never been something that we've gotten in trouble. Because we do. It's, I don't know how many assistant superintendents ago, he used to always call us empty seats on a plane. If we have available space in a room, we can collect $5,000 for that seat. And when people ask about special education, yes, we can't discriminate about anything. We can't ask about their IEPs, their primary language. We can't ask about their discipline. We used to be able to ask about discipline. We can't ask about that anymore. We can't be prejudicial in any way, shape, or form. But if they are a special needs child, we do get an added increment on that. And our increment for this year is on the order of $220,000 or something of that nature. You get it literally. It's based on the circuit breaker model without the circuit breaker. So you don't have the 50,000 or so that we're eating at first. It's literally from $1. 1 minute of speech and language once a year, and we'll get $12 type of thing. And we claim everything. It's not a question about that. So again, here's the history, so you can just see the history. Something I've done, I call it rationale. It's basically if I took out all the school choice children and applied it to our current class sizes. So what you would see there, I always have the need to walk now. So the column that says school choice enrollment, that's our current enrollment for school choice students. So the next column over, average without school choice seats. So that would be our average class size if I took all the school choice students out and left all the teachers. The problem is we're generating approximately $660,000 this year. So I've got at a cost of at about $60,000 a teacher, I take 12 teachers out of our list. So when I just apportion out 12 teachers from K to wherever got to grade 11, that'd be 12 grades, you'll see that our class size actually goes up because we use that revenue to, again, truthfully buy more teachers or keep the teachers we have here, employed.
Yeah, and you'll see it doesn't negatively impact our class size because the actual is the 2020. The fourth column is the current students, and if you took the school choice, the numbers do not change significantly. So when we get that revenue without significantly impacting class size.
So then the third sheet is from my recommendations on where the class sizes are going to be, and it keeps all of our class sizes within guidelines. So the adding the school choice seats is not negatively impacting class size beyond the guidelines. We just have not done that, I don't say ever, but certainly in my recollection. So going back to the first sheet, not sure right though, I must have copied something wrong over. So I'll work from here because it's 43. My recommendation would be to add open up 11 seats for kindergarten. Our current kindergarten enrollment is at 120 now, which for my tenure here would be it's less than half of some of the classes that I started with here. Right now we have 59 students slated for our 4 kindergarten classrooms in traditional. So we have a little bit of space there, I'd say. So we have 11 people who are interested, and I recommend taking all 11, including the one sibling. We have 2 students who are interested in French immersion kindergarten. As you can see, our French immersion kindergarten size is 25 students for 2 classrooms. So again, trying to keep that program alive as much as possible. Yes, Dawn?
Keith, can I just ask, with the 11 that are interested in traditional kindergarten, are we doing outreach to those families to see if they might have an interest in Montessori to better, not Montessori, to French immersion to better balance that?
Not, because we usually ask for their 3 preferences, not one of them chose French as their second preference.
When they're given the choice to, check this, check that, or 1, 2, 3, do they get information about the program? I mean, have we done outreach for them to understand Montessori, French? Like, is there?
They will reach out themselves to what we have. Marketing individual programs can be challenging sometimes because you don't necessarily want to show a preference one way or the other. We're very careful when we do our own, kindergarten information nights at Placentino, just because you don't want to pit programs against each other.
We highlight the strengths of them.
Right, but right now, we're not, so if you look at the class size, we're not really pitting a program against each other. We have full sort of kindergarten and traditional kindergarten classes. We have many seats on the plane for French immersion.
And still in traditional, but we can certainly make that opportunity available to them.
Can we go back out again?
We can, when we offer them the seats, we can ask them if they would be interested in possibly choosing French or
market again.
But can we ask them if they want more information to understand it? Because if you're not from this community, aren't aware of some of the, what the program means, they just might not have the information that you might get from your neighbor.
Understood. We can do more, and we will do more once the seats are approved and we reach out to them. So.
And is there a way to keep our kindergarten school choice seats open longer?
They're open until next June.
Oh, okay.
So, and if we got more interest, I would come back and say, hey, can we create 2 or 3 more seats? I mean, we meet twice a month normally. And
is there more we can do to try to generate more interest? Again, I know we've gone back to it, we've done it again. I know there's hesitation, but it's just, 13 and a half kids in a class.
Flyer, right?
Exactly. We posted a flyer. We've again, outside of running a banner across Washington Street for anybody who drives through town,
we can go to neighboring towns and post a banner there.
I don't think that's going to be well amongst our peer districts. I mean, we still have to meet up with these people every now and then and go to professional organizations, and I'm not sure that they would necessarily appreciate us.
Sounds like a you problem.
It could be a me problem. There's no question about it.
It's clearly getting close to 10. Let's get moving.
Communities' Facebook groups are posted.
There you go. See?
I have a question. Yeah, say if we approve these numbers and families rescind their interest, do those numbers remain, or do they decrease?
You open up a seat. I'm not opening up a seat for that child. I'm opening up a seat in that grade.
Got it.
So if the first child turns it down, we go to the second child. We do a lottery. We move down that list until we exhaust it. It's rare for us to get every seat that we create filled unless it's like 8 kids and 1 seat type of thing. We just never. We opened up a slew of high school seats last year, and we filled about 2/3 of them. And we had a lot of children interested as well. This year, again, the number of having 91 people, 91 families interested is, last year we only had 49 students interested. So I mean, if you want to say that if people are thinking that Holliston is going down somewhere, that's not the case, at least from our neighboring communities. So for us to, almost double our interest this year would tell you that they still have a good, strong respect for our schools.
Out of curiosity, are you able to know what districts are coming from?
Yes, I do. I mean, if people want to know, I can certainly offer up like the top 3. Just when I finish this, I will do that. Yeah. Okay, just I don't want to have to call another sheet. I do have that available. So again, my recommendation, I'd like to recommend opening up 2 seats in 4th grade, 3 in 5th, 2 in 6th, 5 in 7th, 3 in 8th, and a combined 15 in the high school. It's the high school, we like to be a little flexible. We're allowed to be, I put 10 and 5 here, but it's 15 in the high school. I would hope that 15 would be able to use up all 29 and 12, 41 slots.
So just to clarify, Dr. Kutz pointed out that there's 2 rows for 5th grade, and so it's 3 spots
It's
we're
3
opening in
spots
5th
in
grade.
5th grade. You have 5th grade twice on your memo. That's
is that what, okay.
That's the error.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
it is 43.
It is 43 shows.
Okay.
So, Keith, what do you think accounts for the fact that we have 91 requests this year, whereas last year we only had 49?
I think it's strong administrative leadership at the central office.
I believe it's a strong leadership of the chair.
I think we're getting back to more of our normal interest level because COVID has died down. I mean, we know it's not gone.
No, but
I like COVID last year again.
But people were isolating still within their own kind of.
I think that
not willing
people
to
are
venture
exactly
out.
are going further
Yeah.
out there, and it's just again they're getting back to more of a normal life, and this is more like our typical interest.
Yeah,
Our typical interest would always be between say 75 and 100, and now at 91, this is more like our typical interest.
Okay.
So would anyone like to make a
I
motion?
have one more question. The 2 6th grade seats you're opening up.
Yes.
Just again, seeing the 91 application or 91 requests, 49, and the ones you recommended. Do we have additional requests for 6th grade? I know it's somewhat of a smaller class.
If you look at the other column,
Okay.
We have 5 requests right now. I didn't want to, I truly didn't want to accept all 5 because I'm trying to be respectful of the fact that we eliminated 2 teaching positions there. We do not have enough interest, or would we ever get enough interest to restore those 2 positions? We're never going to get 36 graders.
If there were 15.
And again, 6th graders has been an attrition year for us in general anyway. And, again, if our attrition rate is higher than I anticipated it to be, that number could even be lower, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everyone good? So I'd like to entertain a motion to open 43 school choice seats with the breakdown as presented in your packet and as presented by Mr. Boudet.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. That carries. Lisa, 7 to 0.
And Frank, do you want to know how many from each town, or just the 3 highest towns?
3 largest towns.
3 largest
Late
towns?
night.
I'm sorry?
It's late at night, we don't even go
Okay,
through all
well,
of them.
I can add that, but Milford is our highest, Framingham's our 2nd highest, and Bellingham's our 3rd.
Okay.
Is that? Are you
Oh,
done with
actually, I
your-
have one more question.
Okay.
We voted already.
I know.
She doesn't get enough of Keith.
I don't need to re-vote. It's more of a, if there was an opportunity for us to open more seats, would we consider doing that?
I would bring back a recommendation.
That's what I'm
That's
asking.
happened in the past.
Yes,
I
I'm
mean,
just
so,
asking.
Yes.
Just for the benefit of all.
I'm not bashful about
Thank you.
gathering acorns.
Okay,
so.
especially if we're talking about other French immersion
That was
or
seats on a
other
plane.
Montessori seats or something.
Acorns on a plane?
We need to
No.
fill anything. But they're also
You're opening, the seats are
Taser
open,
open.
gathering acorns, that's the
Acorn
money.
money?
No, acorn is money.
Okay.
That's the question. All right, 3 more minutes, let's go. You got 3 minutes.
All right, good.
It's almost 10, that's it.
So we have to reorganize the subcommittees. because
We
we're-
don't
we're
actually have
low.
to do that tonight.
Well, we're going to. But So
I would be in favor of reorganizing the subcommittees because I think we're going to have communications that we would like to. We don't want to just pause everything for 2 weeks. We may have communications we want to put out. I know budget we met today, but I could see.
But have they been, okay. Go ahead, proceed.
Thank you. So the only one that I think we would have an update from, do you have any policy update?
No.
Okay.
You don't need from all this negotiation system.
How about budget?
Budget, we had a meeting today. We talked about, going to the select board, basically a motion for us to go to the select board on Tuesday, and we'll get to that. So we're not going to jump the agenda here, but that's it. We have no additional meetings scheduled, but I would anticipate additional meetings before our next meeting.
Not before June 6th.
I think we might need a meeting before June 6th.
More than likely.
Your budget meeting, or do you mean us?
No, a budget.
Okay.
Budget.
Yeah. Have fun.
So possibly us. So with that, just on the heels of ratifying the contract and having things go forward, we're going to go to the select board on Tuesday, and then I just want to either have a discussion or just simply vote on a sort of an official request for the select board to hold a special town meeting. So the school committee is officially requesting to hold a special town meeting on or about June 17th. Is there any discussion about that or any? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
Moved by Dawn.
Second.
There. Along with that, I'd like a motion to simply, we have a draft of a letter, joint letter with the HFT to sort of give the committee's approval for Dawn and me to sort of finalize it without any sort of material changes, and it's sort of in your packet. I'll send out a few changes that I got this evening, but they're not really material.
We don't have a newsletter in here, though. Is that what that's supposed to be? Or communication?
That's part of the contract ratification.
It's similar to like when you did the joint statement with the pair, on the pair contract.
So I have a motion for that.
Moved by Dawn.
Second by Sarah.
All in favor? Carries unanimously. Now, to reorganize the subcommittee, so I have a recommendation, and then we can discuss it, and we can change things around. But so Dawn and I will stay on budget, and I think that Frank being in finance and having a new member, well, not normal, given that we have 3 new members. That was sort of my thought, is for budget policy. Cynthia, would you be willing to stay on as policy chair?
Can I just pause for a moment and just say, I think we should lay out kind of, like, are you thinking policy meetings would typically be in late afternoon or lunchtime? So it'd be kind of after working hours, maybe more
after
like
4:15.
After 4:15, even 5 o'clock, and then you typically would meet.
We meet monthly,
You
if
meet
not
monthly,
more often if we
sometimes
can.
more often. And then with budget, we have been, many of our meetings have been during the workday, at lunchtime or in the afternoon, because it's important for us to have both, Dr. Kuska, Dr. Bernard, Mr. Boudet, usually 2 members of FinCom come as well. But that is typically during, Monday through Friday in the afternoon.
You're doing a better job explaining this than I am at 10:01. So yeah, the subcommittees do tend to meet more during the day or early evening, just because the administration does participate, and we try to keep them late as few times as possible.
I would say that communications is a little bit more like you can kind of meet a little bit more. It's more flexible, as well as it's superintendent evaluation too. But we can get in. We don't have to decide superintendent eval right now. But
we won't do superintendent eval. But let's do policy and communications, because I think those are.
They'll have to express their interest.
So, Cynthia, you'll chair, and Sarah, would you chair communications?
Sure.
And then, so is there interest from the new members for policy? Or Sarah, do you want to also be on policy?
I like policy, but,
Well, I mean,
but I'm
I'm thinking of
a
succession
plan.
planning.
It'd be
Yeah.
nice for Sarah to stay
Yep.
on because she's, she's fine.
Oh, you're already on. I'm sorry.
She's already on.
You're on there. So yes.
Yeah, but she still needs to chair something, so it'd be good.
No, chairing.
Perfect, perfect, yeah, great.
Hillary, I don't know, with your background, do you have interest in policy?
Yeah, I'd like to do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great.
And then for communications, we need 2 more members. Joe?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Hillary, maybe do communications too?
And communications will often help us organize like office hours too, and get a newsletter out
Which we try to do like quarterly.
but you can do it more often.
You can do it more often, but like.
Put it on the
I
agenda
know,
for
we
every
do,
meeting.
yes,
If you
but.
had it, we'll get it out
Yeah.
there.
It's usually really important during budget time, of course, and when there's other major things going on.
And then the last one that I would like to do as part of this tonight is just appoint someone to be the HUE negotiating liaison. It's our administrative bargaining unit. I'll volunteer for that unless someone feels strongly that they.
Just need me on. If I'm only on one, what else am I gonna go on?
Well,
I was on eval. Oh, am I gonna stay on eval?
Yeah.
Oh, right, that's right, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I got lost for a second.
If you want to do that tonight, we can.
No, we can do it later.
Is it possible, like if you did that and one of the new members wanted to join with you?
We can do
because
2.
My only, like why I'm thinking that is, if we're successful with, we ratified the contract tonight. It's a 3-year agreement. It's contingent on override, but we did just close the para contract as well. But it would give you some experience on the negotiating, and you may want to, I'm not sure the next time you'd have that opportunity. So if you maybe want to do it with Dan too.
Does someone want to do that?
To do what?
PU.
Oh, yeah.
Administrators,
Administrators.
principals,
Yeah.
SSAs.
Because Sarah, you are the
yeah.
cafeteria workers.
yeah.
Do we have any more that we need?
When does it meet?
We haven't decided yet.
Maintenance will meet, they still have not said.
Keith usually does maintenance.
They're supposed to send you something.
We don't, nurses are fine right now.
So we need maintenance workers in
Last
you?
year.
And cafeteria has reached out. so-
Cafeteria is already, yeah.
Yes, all workers.
Okay, so we have Sarah on cafeteria, so.
Files
Yeah.
or thoughts? Or
Files.
Okay.
And thoughts. I always have thoughts.
I know.
And
So
opinions.
does anyone want to work with me on HUE and then someone want to do maintenance?
I'll work with you on Hugh.
Well, that was for the new members.
Oh, all right.
All right, you know what, but you can do maintenance workers.
No, I don't need to do maintenance workers, but okay.
Okay, Frank, all right.
Just have that training experience if we
Got it. Okay, it's late. Can we let's just wrap it
Which
up?
one's harder?
Okay, so maintenance workers, someone think about it and come back to us next on the 6th. So right now, we've got budget chair Don, member Dan and Frank, policy chair Cynthia, member Sarah Hillary, communications chair Sarah, member Joe and Hillary, HUE negotiations Dan and Frank. Chair, a motion to approve that.
Moved by Don,
Second by Cynthia.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we are right at the end of our meeting. We will meet for executive session. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from open session to enter into executive session, from which we will not return for the purpose of discussing strategy with relation to collective bargaining. If an open meeting may have a detrimental impact on bargaining, on the bargaining position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and this is again related to collective bargaining with the HFT unit, as well as to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Moved by Cynthia.
second by Don.
That requires a roll call vote. Frank?
Aye.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Dan? Yes. And with that, we are adjourned.